Hello there, and welcome to Planet in Question, a place where curiosity moves gently and wonder takes its time. Tonight, we're going to lean into a thought that is at once daring and calming, bold and strangely comforting. What if Earth was never just a ball of rock floating in space? What if it was not simply the accidental result of stardust colliding and cooling, of chemistry stumbling forward over billions of years? What if instead, Earth was made deliberately or mysteriously to grow civilizations, not just life in its simplest form, but societies, stories, and intelligence itself? As you let that question settle, I want you to notice where you are right now. Are you tucked into bed, perhaps with a blanket curled around you, listening as the quiet of night gathers? Maybe you're on a long train ride, watching the world blur by while this voice keeps you company. Or perhaps it's the middle of the day, and you've simply paused to give yourself a pocket of calm. Wherever you are, this moment is part of Earth's story too. You, sitting here, listening, breathing, existing. A civilization in miniature, just one person shaped by all the ones who came before. The idea that Earth might be more than just a backdrop is not entirely new. For as long as people have gazed at the sky or listened to the ground beneath their feet, there has been the sense that this world is unusually suited for us. The temperature, not too hot and not too cold. The water, flowing freely across its surface. The soil, able to nurture seeds into fields of food. The air, balanced in a way that fills our lungs without poison. It all feels so delicately aligned. Some would call that coincidence, others might call it design. But no matter the explanation, the feeling lingers. This place is suspiciously fertile, almost as if it was set up to see what would happen if civilizations were allowed to grow. Think about how Earth behaves over time. Continents drift and crash together, then pull apart again. Mountains rise, only to be worn down into sand. Oceans spill into basins, then vanish with the closing of tectonic gates. Forests stretch wide, then vanish in ice ages. Each change clears the stage and sets it again. Civilizations too rise and fall in this rhythm. Mesopotamia, Egypt, the Maya, the Indus Valley, each bloomed like a garden, then withered back into soil. And always, something new emerges in the cleared space. When you step back and watch with a wide enough lens, it feels almost like Earth is not random but cyclical, patient, even purposeful. And here's something to wonder about. Civilizations aren't inevitable. They don't appear on every planet. For billions of years, Earth itself was alive but empty of people. Microbes swam through oceans, and for vast stretches of time, that was enough. But then something shifted. The planet grew forests. It grew animals with eyes and minds. And eventually, it grew us creatures who not only survive, but build, imagine, and tell stories about where we came from. Why here? Why now? Why at all? Sometimes, it feels as though Earth itself has been cultivating us, the way a gardener tends a patch of soil. Sunlight falls in measured doses, water cycles endlessly from ocean to sky to river. Even disasters, the asteroids, the floods, the fires, have the strange quality of renewal. They sweep the board clean, yes, but they also open the way for something different to step in. The dinosaurs' extinction, for example, left room for mammals to spread, and for primates to eventually climb into intelligence. Without that cosmic reset, we would not be here. Catastrophe, strangely enough, might be part of the design. And if Earth is designed to grow civilizations, then perhaps even our mistakes and collapses are not wasted. When cultures crumble, they leave behind knowledge in stone, in writing, in whispers of myth. Later generations pick those up, replant them, and something stronger grows. It's not unlike how forests regrow after fire, nourished by the ashes of what came before. Could it be that Earth uses civilizations the same way? Letting them bloom, letting them fall, and reusing the remains to feed new ones? There is another layer to this, one that stretches beyond human history. Intelligence has appeared many times on Earth. Dolphins communicate with intricate clicks. Crows solve puzzles with tools. Octopuses decorate their dens and play in ways that look oddly familiar. None of these creatures built skyscrapers or telescopes, but the spark of intelligence is scattered all across life. Maybe Earth has been growing civilizations in many directions, testing different shapes of mind, not just ours. Perhaps some of those experiments ended before we could see them, or perhaps they are still ongoing, hidden in places we have not yet learned to look. When you let yourself lean into this thought, it becomes less of a question about aliens or gods and more about Earth itself. Maybe this planet is not just alive in the sense of microbes and forests. Maybe it is alive in the sense of intention, guiding and shaping without us even realizing. We walk on its surface, we breathe its air, we drink its water, and through us it continues its experiment. Every city, every culture, every attempt at civilization is one more bloom in Earth's strange garden. And yet, if this is a garden, then we are not permanent. Gardens are seasonal, civilizations are too. The ruins of those who came before us remind us of that. Their walls crumble into sand, their languages vanish into silence. Even our own skyscrapers and satellites, given enough time, will fall. Earth will keep the memory in stone layers and fossils, but it will move on. Perhaps it will grow something new after us, something different, something stranger. For now, though, we are the living bloom, the fruit of Earth's long patience. And tonight, as we wander slowly through this idea together, I invite you to picture the world not as a backdrop for civilization, but as its gardener. Every mountain, every ocean, every extinction and rebirth are part of a careful tending, a long experiment. Earth has been at this work for billions of years, and tonight we are one of its living results. If that thought feels strange, let it also feel comforting, because it means we are part of something larger than ourselves. Not an accident, not meaningless, but woven into a story that is still unfolding. And if this gentle journey stirs something in you, if you'd like to wander further into these questions with me, I'd be grateful if you tapped like or subscribed. It helps keep this small, quiet corner alive so that others can join us too. Now, let's take a deep breath together. Let the thought rest gently. Earth may be more than a planet. It may be a garden, an experiment, a stage set not just for life, but for civilizations. And tonight, we will walk softly into that possibility. 1. Earth as a stage. Imagine Earth as more than just a ball of rock orbiting a star. Imagine it as a stage, carefully set, its scenery shifting over billions of years, its lighting adjusted by the tilt of its axis, its props moved by the restless drift of continents. On this stage, life enters, takes its place, and sometimes even organizes itself into civilizations. If you close your eyes for a moment, you can almost picture it. The curtains of atmosphere pulled back, the oceans shimmering like polished floors, and the mountains rising like painted backdrops. Earth is not static. It changes, it resets, it renews itself, and through all of it, life continues to perform, adapting to the scene that has been prepared for it. There's something curious about how well this stage suits us. We live in what astronomers call the Goldilocks zone, not too hot, not too cold. Water flows freely here, shaping rivers and lakes, filling the oceans. The air wraps around us in exactly the right mix to breathe. And while this is often explained as coincidence, or as the natural outcome of evolution adapting to what was available, sometimes it feels like more than that. It feels almost as if the stage was arranged, as though the script was waiting for characters like us to arrive. What if Earth was built not only to grow life, but to grow civilizations? Civilizations, after all, are not inevitable. Life can thrive without them. Microbes did so for billions of years. Even great animals like the dinosaurs ruled Earth without building cities or writing down laws. Civilizations are fragile things. They require not just survival, but abundance. They require rivers that flood and leave behind fertile soil. They require seasons that are predictable enough to plant seeds. They require stability, but not too much challenges that push ingenuity, but not catastrophes so constant that nothing can last. Look closely, and you begin to see how Earth provides exactly these things. A balance between chaos and calm, a rhythm that encourages not just survival but growth. Think about rivers. They carve valleys, deposit silt, and leave behind rich soils. Along the Nile, the Tigris and Euphrates, the Indus, the Yellow River civilizations sprouted like crops themselves. Was it random that these rivers carried just the right amount of water? Not too little, not too much? Perhaps. Or perhaps Earth had set its stage with care, ensuring that fertile regions would be scattered across its continents, ready for humans to find. Without rivers, there are no farms. Without farms, there are no cities. Without cities, there are no civilizations. The stage required rivers, and the rivers were here. Mountains too played their part. They rise from the restless dance of tectonic plates, and as they crumble, they release minerals back into the soil. Their melting snow feeds streams. Their slopes create microclimates where new species adapt. Civilizations often nestle in valleys near mountains, where water and resources are abundant. And yet, mountains are not eternal. They grow, they erode, they vanish, and new ones rise again. It's as if Earth keeps resetting its set pieces, making sure the stage never grows too barren. Even the disasters, volcanoes, earthquakes, storms serve as dramatic turns in the story. Too much stability, and nothing changes. Too much chaos, and nothing endures. But Earth seems to sit in that precarious balance. Civilizations rise, they flourish, and sometimes they fall when the balance tips. But even collapse seems to clear the way for renewal. The ash of volcanoes enriches the soil. Floods deposit nutrients across plains. Fires reset forests. It is destruction, yes, but also preparation. A stagehand sweeping the floor between acts. And what about the stars above us? Earth does not drift alone in darkness. It orbits a sun that is unusually stable. Our star does not flare too violently, nor fade too quickly. It burns with a steady light, casting warmth that nurtures life. Had we orbited a different kind of star, our stage might have been too unstable for civilizations to grow. Yet here we are, circling a star that has offered billions of years of relatively steady conditions, enough time for not just microbes or forests, but intelligent beings to emerge, to gather, to build. There is something theatrical in the way civilizations appear across Earth. Mesopotamia, Egypt, China, Mesoamerica, each rising independently, yet following similar arcs. Agriculture, cities, writing, monuments, collapse, renewal. It is as though the same play has been performed in different theatres, with different actors, but always on the same Earth, always with the same stage set beneath their feet. Why does history echo like this? Why do civilizations follow patterns that repeat, even when separated by oceans? Perhaps the stage itself guides them, shaping their possibilities. Sometimes I wonder if Earth itself nudges us forward, not with intention in the human sense, but with the quiet persistence of a stage built for a certain kind of performance. Think of how quickly civilizations developed compared to the long stillness of prehistory. For millions of years, stone tools changed little. Then suddenly, in a geological blink, humans painted caves, built temples, invented farming, and raised monuments that still stand today. It is almost as though the curtain rose, the lights brightened, and the performance began in earnest. What changed? Did the stage reach a point of readiness, a moment when it could finally support the weight of civilizations? And now, here we are, one among many civilizations that have come and gone, though ours is larger, more connected, more global than any before. We live not along just one river or one valley, but across continents. We speak to each other across oceans instantly. Our stage has grown, expanded by technology, yet it is still the same Earth beneath us. The same balance of chaos and calm, the same rhythms of soil, water and sky. Even in our modern world, we are still actors moving across the stage that Earth has set. When you think about Earth this way, it softens the edges of history. The rise and fall of civilizations are not random accidents, but scenes in a larger story. Some scenes are grand and filled with triumph. Others are dark, filled with collapse and loss. But each scene is necessary, and the stage endures through all of them. Civilizations are fragile, but Earth is patient. It allows them to bloom, to fall, and to bloom again, always ready for the next act. So tonight, as you rest with this thought, picture Earth not just as a planet, but as a stage that has been carefully set with oceans, mountains, rivers, climates, and catastrophes. A stage that seems almost tuned to grow civilizations. Whether by accident or design, by natural balance or hidden intention, the result is the same. We are here, telling our stories upon it. And maybe, just maybe, we are not the first nor the last, but simply this moment's cast. 2. The soil of time. If Earth is a stage, then time itself is the soil from which everything grows. Not just moments, not just years, but the deep, patient layering of billions of years, each one building quietly upon the last. Civilizations may feel fast and urgent, like flames flickering brightly before they vanish, but beneath them lies a world that has taken its time. Earth is not hurried. It allows things to unfold slowly, almost imperceptibly, until one day, something new emerges from what seemed like nothing at all. The soil of time is richer than any farmland. It holds not only nutrients and minerals, but cycles, lessons, and possibilities that civilizations draw upon without even realizing. Think of the land beneath your feet. Wherever you are right now, the ground has a story older than any city or country. Rocks are not just rocks, they are ancient scripts, rewritten by heat, pressure, erosion, and fire. A grain of sand might once have been part of a towering mountain. A pebble could have been pressed into place during the formation of a supercontinent that existed a billion years ago. Even the soil that grows our food is recycled from countless layers of life and death before us. Plants that rose and fell, animals that lived and decayed, oceans that dried and returned. Civilizations depend on this soil without ever seeing its true age. The food on our plates, the stones in our walls, the metals in our tools all come from time's patient recycling. Earth's great cycles are the gardeners of civilization. Plate tectonics, for example, endlessly rearrange the continents. They collide, forming mountain ranges. They separate, creating oceans. They recycle crust back into the mantle and push up new land from below. This restless movement ensures that Earth never grows stagnant. Nutrients trapped in deep rock are eventually lifted and exposed, feeding new ecosystems. Without this recycling, soils would become barren, oceans would lose their richness, and life would falter. Instead, time turns the wheel again and again, always replenishing what is needed. Civilizations rise on fertile ground because the Earth has prepared that ground over millions of years. Extinctions, too, are part of this soil of time. More than 99% of all species that have ever lived are gone. At first glance, this feels tragic, but in the long view, it is a kind of renewal. Each extinction clears ecological space for something new. When the great forests of the Carboniferous were buried, their remains became coal that would one day fuel human industry. When the dinosaurs fell, mammals had room to flourish, and eventually humans appeared. Every ending feeds the next beginning. Civilizations, fragile and temporary, may be part of this same pattern. Their collapse may feel final to those living through it, but to Earth, it is just another layer of compost, another enrichment of the soil of time. And consider water, the great shaper. Rain wears down mountains into fertile plains. Rivers cut valleys that shelter communities. Floods, though destructive, leave behind rich silt that nourishes crops. Over thousands of years, these cycles create landscapes where civilizations can thrive. The Nile's regular flooding was the heartbeat of ancient Egypt. The Indus Valley civilizations rose in fertile floodplains. Even now, modern cities cluster along rivers and coasts, still dependent on the same rhythms. Time and water together prepare these places long before humans arrive. Civilizations are not only born from invention, they are born from landscapes sculpted over eons. There is something humbling in this. Civilizations often imagine themselves as permanent, as the climax of history. But when you stand back, you see that they are more like seasons in Earth's long story. The soil of time holds countless forgotten chapters. Supercontinents formed and split before any creature had bones. Entire ecosystems thrived before flowers ever existed. Civilizations are just the latest expression, like blossoms appearing briefly on a tree that has stood for ages. Their roots go deeper than they know, drawing from layers of time that extend far beyond memory. Sometimes I imagine Earth as a great library. Each layer of rock is a page, each fossil a line of text, each mineral a footnote. Civilizations are late arrivals to this library, scribbling hurried chapters in the margins. We build monuments, write histories, carve statues into stone, but compared to the slow writing of geology, our records are fleeting. A few thousand years from now, many of our works will be gone. A few million, and nearly all traces will vanish. Yet the soil of time will remember us differently, not in books or ruins, but in chemical traces, in subtle shifts of rock and atmosphere. Future civilizations, if they come, may stand on ground that carries our unseen imprint, just as we now walk on soils shaped by extinctions and forests long vanished. Even climate itself is part of this soil. Ice ages come and go, warm periods bloom and fade. Civilizations depend on these stable windows. Our own species flourished during the relatively calm climate of the Holocene. Before that, massive swings in temperature forced humans to adapt, migrate, and innovate. If Earth is a gardener, then climate is its tool for pruning and shaping, ensuring that life and civilization never becomes too comfortable, never forgets how to adjust. Some cultures thrive in warm, fertile times. Others collapse when the climate shifts too sharply. Yet even collapse becomes part of the soil, feeding the memory of resilience into the future. This is the strange truth. Time is not only vast, it is generous. It does not hoard its resources, it recycles them endlessly. Civilizations think in terms of lifetimes, in terms of years or centuries, but Earth thinks in eons. It grows civilizations from the same soil it used to grow forests, reefs, and mountains. We are part of that continuity, not separate from it. When we vanish, our remains will join the soil of time as well, enriching the stage for whatever comes next. So, as you sit here in this moment, let yourself feel the depth beneath you. The ground you rest on is not just dirt, it is history layered upon history. It is oceans turned to stone, forests turned to coal, volcanoes turned to mountains and back again. It is the quiet memory of billions of years, holding within it the possibility of civilizations not yet imagined. We are here because time has been patient, because Earth has kept turning the wheel, because the soil beneath our feet has been enriched by countless lives and deaths before us. If Earth was made to grow civilizations, then time is its most faithful gardener. Slow, steady, relentless, it prepares the stage again and again, no matter how many times the curtain falls. Civilizations may rise, may fall, but time continues its work. And perhaps that is the most comforting thought of all, that nothing is ever wasted, nothing is ever lost. Everything returns to the soil of time, and from that soil something new always grows. 3. The ocean's hand. If the soil of time is one of Earth's gardeners, then surely the ocean is another. It is easy to think of civilization as something that belongs to land, cities, fields, roads, monuments. But if we pull back far enough, we see that the story of life and civilization begins with water. For billions of years, the ocean was the only home life knew. It was the great cradle where molecules first began to dance together into the patterns we now call living. And even now, though most civilizations rise on land, they are shaped more than we realize by the hand of the sea. Close your eyes and imagine the first oceans. Not blue and calm like the ones we know, but strange and alien. The skies were redder, the atmosphere thicker, the waters filled with minerals and stirred by constant volcanic heat. Within them, tiny forms of life clung to vents, feeding on chemistry, multiplying slowly. The oceans kept them safe, shielding them from the harsh radiation of a young Sunday. Without this watery embrace, life might never have survived long enough to try anything more complicated. The ocean's hand was gentle, steady, protective. It set the stage for everything that followed. As life grew more complex, the oceans did more than protect. They stirred, they tested, they forced creatures to adapt. Currents carried nutrients around the globe. Tides rose and fell, pushing organisms to develop rhythms, cycles of rest and activity. Storms swept the surface, while the deep remained dark and constant. In this contrast, life learned to diversify. Some species rose to the surface to chase sunlight, others retreated into the depths. Some clung to coasts, while others drifted freely across vast expanses. The ocean was not just a cradle, it was also a teacher. Eventually, life made the leap onto land. Fish became amphibians became reptiles, and the stage of civilization was set. But even as creatures left the sea, they never really left it behind. Our bodies carry its memory. The salt in our blood matches the chemistry of ancient seas. The rhythm of our hearts echoes tides. Even our need for water is a tether to that original home. Civilizations, no matter how far inland they build, always remain bound to the ocean's hand. Consider how every major civilization has been shaped by water. Rivers, yes, but also seas and coasts. The Mediterranean cradled the Greeks, the Romans, the Phoenicians. The Indian Ocean linked Africa, the Middle East and Asia in ancient trade routes. The Pacific carried stories and migrations across countless islands. Oceans connect as much as they divide. They bring strangers into contact. They carry goods, ideas, even languages from shore to shore. Civilizations grow faster where oceans invite exchange. They stagnate where seas are too dangerous to cross. Once again, the ocean decides the pace of history. And it is not only history. Even now, modern civilization depends on the ocean in ways that are easy to overlook. It regulates climate, absorbing heat, and distributing it around the globe. It produces much of the oxygen we breathe, thanks to the countless tiny phytoplankton drifting in its surface waters. It feeds billions through fisheries. It carries ships that move goods between continents. Strip away the ocean, and civilization falters almost instantly. The ocean's hand is still upon us, guiding, sustaining, shaping, just as it did in the beginning. But the ocean is not only generous, it is also a force of testing, of resetting. Floods and storms have destroyed countless coastal settlements. Tsunamis have erased entire towns. Rising seas swallow coastlines inch by inch. Myths of great floods appear in cultures across the world, from Mesopotamia to India, from the Pacific Islands to the Americas. Perhaps they are not only stories, perhaps they are memories of times when the ocean swept its hand across the stage, clearing it for something new. Civilizations that forget the ocean's power often meet sudden reminders. There is also the mystery of what lies beneath. We know more about the surface of Mars than we do about our own deep oceans. More than 80% of the seafloor remains unmapped, unseen, unknown. Entire mountain ranges lie hidden beneath the waves. Vast trenches descend deeper than any human has ever gone. Strange life forms thrive in conditions we once thought impossible. Creatures that glow in darkness, that feed on chemicals rather than sunlight, that withstand crushing pressures. Who can say what else might be down there? What histories or even civilizations might be hiding beyond our sight? The ocean's hand might not only shape the past, it might still be shaping stories we have yet to discover. If Earth was made to grow civilizations, then perhaps the ocean was included as both cradle and challenge. It nurtures, but it also tests. It connects, but it also divides. It invites us to cross it, but punishes arrogance with storms. This balance between gift and danger may be exactly what civilizations need in order to grow resilient. Too much ease, and nothing advances. Too much hardship, and nothing survives. The ocean provides both, depending on how we approach it. Think about standing on a shoreline. The waves move steadily in and out, endless, patient. Civilizations have stood on these same shores for thousands of years, watching the same waves. Fishermen launch boats, traders load cargo, migrants set out for new lands, armies prepare fleets, lovers walk by moonlit waters, poets listen and write. The sea has been present in every stage of human story, not just as scenery but as participant. It gives us food, trade, inspiration, and fear. It reminds us that no matter how advanced we become, there will always be depths we cannot conquer. And perhaps that is the lesson of the ocean's hand. Civilizations grow stronger because they must negotiate with it. They must learn tides, read stars, build ships, and adapt to floods. They must remember that the ocean cannot be controlled, only respected. Each civilization that has flourished near coasts has carried this knowledge, whether in practical navigation or in myths of sea gods and water spirits. The ocean has always held a place of reverence because we sense, deeply, that it holds us too. So tonight, let yourself imagine the ocean not just as water, but as history itself. Imagine civilizations as sandcastles built at its edge, sometimes flourishing, sometimes swept away, but always shaped by the waves. Imagine that every tide is a reminder of the deep time beneath us, the ancient seas that made our blood, the currents that carry life across the globe. The ocean's hand is vast, patient, and unrelenting. It cradles, it teaches, it tests. Without it, there would be no civilizations at all. With it, civilizations bloom, falter, and bloom again. And perhaps, even now, as we listen together, the ocean is writing the next act. 4. Civilizations' rhythms. Civilizations, when we look at them closely, seem to move with a rhythm of their own. They are born, they grow, they flourish, and then, sooner or later, they decline. At first glance, these rises and falls seem like accidents of history, wars, plagues, droughts, or misfortune. But if we step back far enough, if we listen carefully, there is a pulse to it, a repeating beat that echoes across time. Perhaps civilizations themselves are not random events, but part of a larger pattern, as if Earth has been guiding them through cycles, rehearsing the same performance again and again. Think about Mesopotamia, often called the cradle of civilization. Between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, people learned to tame water, to plant crops, to build cities. They raised temples and wrote on clay tablets, leaving behind the first recorded stories we know. And yet, after centuries of growth, those same rivers that had once sustained them also betrayed them. Floods, invasions, shifting climates, all played their part in decline. The stage was cleared, and new civilizations rose in their place. Egypt, with its pyramids and pharaohs, the Indus Valley, with its planned cities, China's ancient dynasties, Mesoamerica, with its temples reaching skyward, each one a variation on the same theme, each one rising, shining, then fading into silence. Why this rhythm? Why do civilizations rarely endure forever? One answer is that Earth itself seems to demand it. Resources shift, climates change, rivers alter their course, soils grow tired, then renew. Civilizations thrive when the balance is right, but when the stage changes, they falter. Yet even their collapse is not wasted. Each fall leaves traces, stories, ruins, ideas that seed the next growth. It is as if Earth grows civilizations the way a forest grows trees. Some stand tall for centuries, then fall and decay, but their remains feed the soil for new growth. Consider Rome. For centuries, it was the heart of an empire stretching across continents. Its roads tied lands together, its language shaped Europe, its laws echoed into modern times. But Rome too fell, not in one night, but in slow decline. Yet even in falling, it planted seeds that later civilizations would pick up. Medieval Europe carried fragments of Roman thought. Renaissance artists and philosophers revived its art and literature. Modern governments still echo its laws. Rome collapsed, but its rhythm continued, folded into the larger beat of history. Civilizations in Mesoamerica show this rhythm too. The Maya built grand cities, aligned with the stars, carved deep in jungle stone. But over centuries, many of those cities emptied. Drought, conflict, shifting trade all contributed, yet the culture did not vanish. Descendants still carry Maya traditions, languages, and stories. The rhythm was not broken, it changed tempo. When we compare these histories, the similarities are striking. Agriculture begins, cities rise, monuments are built, art flourishes, trade expands. Then pressures build environmental strain, internal conflict, external invasion, collapse follows. It is not always catastrophic. Sometimes it is gradual, like a song fading out. Sometimes it is abrupt, like a sudden silence. But always, the rhythm continues elsewhere, in another land, in another time. Perhaps this rhythm is what Earth intended. If Earth was made to grow civilizations, maybe it was never meant for them to be permanent. Maybe their cycles of rise and fall are the way Earth ensures variety, resilience, and change. A single unending civilization might stagnate. Many civilizations, blooming and fading, keep the story alive. They experiment with different ideas, different shapes of society, different ways of being human. Some succeed for a time, some fail quickly, but all add to the long song of Earth's history. Even now, in our modern age, we feel this rhythm beneath us. Our own civilization is vast, connected across oceans, woven together by technology. Yet we are not immune to the same patterns. We too face shifting climates, resource strain, internal divides. We too imagine permanence. But so did Rome, so did Egypt, so did the empires of the Americas. What if our global civilization is simply the latest verse in the same repeating melody? What if, when we eventually decline, something new will rise after us, nourished by the remnants we leave behind? And maybe that is not something to fear. Civilizations collapsing can sound tragic, but when seen from Earth's perspective, it is part of growth. Just as forests burn and regrow, just as rivers flood and recede, civilizations rise and fall in rhythm. The ruins we leave behind are not failures but gifts. They inspire, they warn, they guide the future. Perhaps collapse itself is a form of wisdom. Earth offers an ending that is also a beginning. It is also possible that civilizations are experiments. Earth might be testing possibilities, letting different forms bloom, seeing how they adapt to changing conditions. Some emphasize religion, others trade, others conquest, others art. Each one tries a different balance of power, belief, and creativity. Each one leaves behind lessons. Over time, those lessons accumulate, shaping the civilizations that come later. What looks like rise and fall might actually be progression, step by step, guided by Earth's hand. When you listen closely to history, you hear the rhythm, the hum of continuity, the heartbeat of civilizations rising and fading. It is slower than our daily lives, slower than the years we measure, but steady across centuries, and it suggests that we are not separate from Earth's cycles, but part of them. Just as tides move in and out, just as seasons shift, civilizations too follow their own seasons. Spring, growth; summer, flourishing; autumn, strain; winter, collapse. And then, inevitably, spring again, somewhere else, in some new form. So tonight, as you rest with this thought, imagine civilizations not as accidents or isolated achievements, but as part of Earth's natural rhythm. Imagine the pyramids of Egypt, the roads of Rome, the temples of the Maya, not as broken dreams, but as verses in a long song. Imagine our own world, with its glowing cities and endless connections, as just one more verse. The song will not end when we do. It will carry on, in new voices, in new forms, across the soil of time and the ocean's hand. Earth will keep the rhythm, steady and patient, as it always has. 5. Nature's balancing act. When you look closely at Earth, there is a sense that it is always negotiating, always holding a delicate balance between extremes. Too much heat, and life withers. Too much cold, and it freezes. Too much oxygen, and fire rages uncontrollably. Too little, and animals suffocate. Even the tilt of Earth's axis seems measured, enough to bring seasons that encourage growth, but not so extreme that they destroy it. Nature appears to move with the precision of a dancer, one step toward chaos, one step back toward calm, always returning to the middle ground where civilizations can grow. It feels less like chance, and more like design, as if Earth's role is not only to host life, but to balance it, to keep the stage steady enough for civilizations to rise. Take the atmosphere, for example. It is not simply air to breathe, it is a shield, filtering harmful radiation, trapping just enough heat, and cycling carbon, nitrogen, and oxygen in ways that maintain balance. Without plants to release oxygen, we would have no civilizations. Without oceans to absorb excess carbon, the world would swing wildly into heat. These cycles do not need our awareness to work. They move on their own, a quiet balancing act that has gone on for billions of years. Every civilization we know, every city, every monument, depends on this invisible rhythm. The fact that it has held steady long enough for us to build anything at all feels remarkable. The same balance appears in ecosystems. Predators and prey exist in tension. Too many predators, and prey vanish. Too few, and prey overwhelm their environment. The balance shifts constantly, but never entirely breaks. Civilizations rely on this dance. Agriculture depends on pollinators, on soil microbes, on rivers that renew themselves, on forests that hold rainfall in place. Remove one part of the system, and the whole balance falters. Yet for thousands of years, Earth has kept these systems in play, often repairing them after disruption. When forests burn, new growth follows. When floods destroy, fertile soil remains. It is as if Earth knows how to reset its balance, ensuring that civilizations will always have another chance. Even catastrophes, when seen from this perspective, are not simply destructive. A volcanic eruption darkens skies, but the ash enriches soil for centuries afterward. A great storm destroys settlements, but also reshapes coasts, creating new harbours for trade. Ice ages wipe away forests but leave behind fertile plains when they retreat. The balance is harsh but also strangely generous. Civilizations often see only the immediate loss, but Earth seems to think in longer terms. Collapse and renewal are two sides of the same balancing act. Perhaps the clearest example of this is climate. Over millions of years, Earth's temperature has swung between extremes, but always returned to a range where life could flourish. Civilizations emerged during a rare period of stability known as the Holocene, a window of calm after the last great ice age. For 10,000 years, the climate was mild, predictable, and steady enough for farming to succeed. Without that balance, there would have been no cities, no writing, no monuments. Civilizations bloom in these rare windows when Earth holds its balance steady. It is as though the planet pauses, holding its breath, waiting to see what will grow. This balancing act raises a question. Is Earth itself alive in some way? Not in the sense of a single organism, but in the sense of a system that regulates itself like one. This is the idea behind the Gaia hypothesis, which suggests that the planet behaves like a self-regulating being. The air, the oceans, the soils, the forests all interact to maintain conditions suitable for life. Civilizations may be one of the fruits of that system, a result of Earth's careful balancing. It is tempting to think of the planet as indifferent, but again and again it seems to choose equilibrium, to resist extremes, to favour the conditions under which societies can emerge. But balance is not perfection. Earth does not offer endless comfort. Instead, it offers tension, just enough hardship to provoke invention, just enough challenge to inspire resilience. Civilizations facing droughts invent irrigation. Those near storm-prone coasts learn shipbuilding. Those in floodplains develop calendars to track seasons. It may be that Earth's balancing act is not about keeping us safe, but about keeping us learning. Too much ease, and nothing changes. Too much difficulty, and nothing survives. The middle ground is where civilizations grow, pushed forward by struggle but not erased by it. You can see this balance even in human stories. Many myths describe floods, fires, plagues, or trials sent by the earth or the gods. Often, these are not final punishments, but resets, warnings that remind humans of their place in the order of things. The idea that Earth corrects itself, that it restores balance when civilizations go too far, appears again and again. Perhaps these myths are more than stories. Perhaps they are memories of how fragile the balance truly is, and how quickly Earth can tilt it back when it needs to. And what about now? Our own civilization has tested this balance more than any before. We have extracted forests, mined mountains, and released gases into the air. The scales are tipping, the climate shifting once more. Yet even here, Earth's balancing act is not gone. It continues to move, to adjust, to respond. It may not always respond in ways we find comfortable, but the balance will return, even if civilizations change along with it. Earth does not break, it resets. The balance remains. So, when we think of civilizations as fragile, fleeting things, we should also remember that they are only possible because Earth is not fragile at all. Its balance has been held for billions of years, through ice and fire, through extinctions and rebirths. Civilizations are not separate from this balance. They are born of it, sustained by it, tested by it, and eventually folded back into it. If Earth was made to grow civilizations, then its greatest gift is this balancing act, the steady hand that keeps the stage ready, no matter how many times the play must begin again. As you rest with this thought, picture the balance around you, the air you breathe, the warmth you feel, the food you eat, the water you drink, all are results of Earth's quiet negotiation, its careful middle path between chaos and stillness. Civilizations rise and fall, but balance remains. And it is in that balance that our stories, our histories, our futures continue to grow. 6. Intelligence as experiment. When we think about civilizations, it is easy to imagine that humans were always meant to be the central characters. After all, we are the ones who write, who build, who record, who look back and tell stories about the past. But if we lean gently into curiosity, a softer question emerges. What if intelligence itself is the real experiment, and humans are simply one of its many attempts? Earth has been nurturing life for billions of years, and intelligence, complex, adaptive, reflective, has appeared more than once. Civilizations may not belong to us alone. They may be part of a larger experiment that Earth keeps running, generation after generation, form after form, always asking, what kind of mind can thrive here? Think first of the oceans. Dolphins and whales live in societies as intricate as some human communities. They communicate with whistles and clicks, each with its own pattern, even dialects unique to different pods. They teach, they cooperate, they play. Their intelligence is not less than ours, but shaped differently, tuned to an aquatic world of echoes and currents. Imagine their songs drifting for miles through the deep, a kind of living language that humans can only barely understand. If intelligence is an experiment, then dolphins are one of Earth's most eloquent answers, a reminder that civilizations need not be made of bricks and firelight. They can be woven of sound and water. Or think of birds. Crows and ravens, with their sharp eyes and sharper minds, solve puzzles, make tools, and remember faces. They live in groups where knowledge is shared, where young ones learn from elders. In some ways, they resemble us more closely than we expect. Resourceful, curious, even mischievous. Their cities are the skies and the forests, but their problem-solving is as advanced as many human inventions. Earth has grown them as another attempt at intelligence, one that soars and scavenges, one that thrives not through stone but through flight. Octopuses too show another path. With bodies soft and fleeting, they live only a handful of years, yet in that time they demonstrate remarkable intelligence. They open jars, camouflage with artistry, even play with toys in aquariums. Their minds are not centralized like ours. They think partly through their arms, as if their intelligence is spread through their entire body. Imagine what kind of civilization might arise if creatures like this lived longer, if their communities were able to pass knowledge across generations. It is a glimpse into a different possibility, one that suggests Earth does not place all its hopes on any single form. Even among humans, intelligence is not uniform. Ancient civilizations show us many different ways of being wise. Some measured the stars and built calendars with astonishing precision. Others mastered irrigation, weaving rivers into farmlands. Others carved stories into stone or passed them carefully in spoken traditions. Intelligence is varied, adaptable, and endlessly inventive. Civilizations rise from that inventiveness, each one a different expression of what a thinking creature can create. Earth, it seems, encourages not just one kind of intelligence, but many, scattering seeds across species, across time. It is tempting to think that intelligence always tends toward civilization, towards cities and tools and technology. But perhaps civilizations are only one expression of intelligence, not its final goal. Dolphins may have civilizations of the sea that leave no ruins. Crows may have traditions we cannot see. Octopuses may hold mysteries of play and creativity we barely glimpse. Perhaps intelligence itself is the true flower, and civilizations are just one of its petals. If that is the case, then Earth's experiment is much larger than our human history. It is an ongoing, living process, testing minds in every corner of its surface and depths. Why would Earth nurture so many forms of intelligence? Maybe because no single one is guaranteed to last. Extinctions happen, climates shift, catastrophes reset the stage. By scattering intelligence into many shapes, Earth ensures that some form will survive, adapt, and try again. Civilizations, then, may be part of resilience, not permanence. They bloom, they fade, but the experiment continues. The garden is never empty for long. When we look at myths and legends, we sometimes see hints of this wider experiment. Tales of talking animals, of wise birds, of underwater kingdoms, all may be echoes of our recognition that intelligence is not ours alone. Many cultures have revered animals as teachers or guardians, not simply as resources. They sensed that wisdom was everywhere, that Earth had shared it widely, not narrowly. Perhaps these stories are our way of remembering the larger experiment, of acknowledging that civilization is only one thread in Earth's web of intelligence. And then there is the question of what comes next. If humans are part of Earth's experiment, are we the final form, or just another step? Our technology grows more complex, our reach broader, but we are also vulnerable to the same rhythms that ended civilizations before us. If we fall, will Earth let the experiment continue through another species? Could dolphins, given time, create their own kind of civilization? Could artificial intelligence, born from us, become the next vessel of Earth's experiment, carrying intelligence beyond biology itself? These are speculative questions, but they flow naturally from the idea that intelligence is not an accident but a seed Earth keeps planting. What is striking is that intelligence always seeks connection. Dolphins call across distances, birds signal across skies, octopuses interact even with humans who peer into their tanks. Humans build cities, write books, send signals into space. Perhaps this is the common thread. Intelligence reaches outward. It does not remain contained. It seeks to build relationships, to share knowledge, to extend itself. Civilizations, then, are one way of reaching outward, of weaving minds together into something greater than individuals. Earth, by growing intelligence, ensures that life is not only surviving, but also conversing, remembering, imagining. As you sit with this thought, picture Earth not just as a planet of rocks and rivers, but as a great laboratory, gently and patiently running an experiment with intelligence. Imagine its oceans humming with the songs of whales, its forests whispering with the cleverness of birds, its reefs alive with the strange play of cephalopods. Imagine humanity not as the sole outcome, but as one of many trials, one of many forms grown in the hope that some will endure, adapt, and flourish. Civilizations are fragile, yes, but intelligence itself may be Earth's most enduring creation, its most persistent experiment. And perhaps, if you listen closely, you can hear the experiment still running, still unfolding in every corner of the planet. Not just in the noise of our cities, but in the quiet songs of the sea, the sharp calls of crows, the hidden lives in the deep. Earth has not finished. It is still growing intelligence, still shaping civilizations of many kinds, some seen, some unseen. We are part of that grand, patient experiment, one voice among many in Earth's long symphony of minds. 7. Ancient shadows. When we speak of civilizations, we often begin with the familiar names: Mesopotamia, Egypt, the Indus Valley, the Maya. Yet across the world, in myths, in whispers, in ruins that puzzle even experts, there are hints of something older, shadows of civilizations that may have risen long before our written histories began. These shadows live in the form of half-remembered stories, in stones that seem out of place, in the sense that what we know is only part of the picture. If Earth was made to grow civilizations, then perhaps it has been doing so far longer than we realize, cultivating attempts that bloomed and faded into silence, leaving only traces that stir our curiosity today. Take the story of Atlantis, told by Plato. He described it as a mighty civilization that vanished beneath the sea, destroyed by cataclysms. Most scholars consider it a parable, a myth meant to convey lessons about pride and downfall. And yet, the idea lingers, not only in Greek philosophy but in the imaginations of countless cultures since. Why does the story of a lost civilization resonate so deeply? Perhaps because it touches something older than memory, a sense that civilizations have risen and fallen before, hidden in the deep shadows of Earth's past. Across the globe, other legends speak of lost worlds. In India, ancient texts describe continents swallowed by the ocean. Polynesian traditions recall islands that sank beneath the waves. Indigenous peoples of the Americas tell of great floods that washed away earlier societies. These stories may be myth, but they may also hold fragments of truth, echoes of real events, real collapses, remembered across generations. Civilizations may have risen during times when the seas were lower, when coastlines stretched farther. As the oceans rose, those civilizations may have been swept away, their remains hidden beneath the waves, leaving behind only stories that drifted into legend. On land, too, we find shadows that invite questions. The great stone city of Göbekli Tepe in modern-day Turkey predates agriculture, predates writing, predates what we normally think of as civilization. It was built over 11,000 years ago, with massive stone pillars arranged in circles, carved with animals and symbols. By all accounts, it should not exist. It suggests that humans were capable of complex organization and artistry long before we believed. Was it an isolated effort, or was it the remnant of a civilization far older than we imagined, one whose memory has been almost entirely erased? Megaliths stand on islands, in forests, in deserts, their builders often unknown. The Moai of Easter Island, the stone circles of Britain, the Cyclopean walls of Peru, the pyramids scattered across continents, each invites speculation. They are often explained within the context of known civilizations, but sometimes their scale and mystery feel older, as if they belong to a story we only half understand. It is possible that we are looking not only at monuments of known cultures, but at echoes of forgotten ones, ancient shadows that never made it into our written history. And then there are the tools and artifacts that appear out of place, the ones unearthed where they should not be, suggesting levels of knowledge earlier than expected. While many of these claims are debated, their persistence in human imagination speaks to something deeper, the intuition that civilizations may not be a recent invention, but a recurring pattern. Perhaps Earth has grown them before, long before the civilizations we study in textbooks, and their remains have simply been scattered by time, buried beneath layers of stone and soil. If this is true, then history as we know it is only a surface layer. Beneath it lies a deeper history, one of cycles that repeat over and over. Civilizations rise, collapse, and vanish, their traces hidden by floods, earthquakes, shifting landscapes. Every so often, fragments resurface, a story told as myth, a ruin uncovered in stone, an artifact that does not fit the timeline. These fragments are the shadows of Earth's earlier experiments, reminders that we are not the first to walk this path. Why would Earth hide these civilizations? Perhaps it is not deliberate concealment, but simply the nature of time. Stone crumbles, wood decays, metal rusts. In a few thousand years, our own cities would vanish if left untended. Forests would reclaim them, seas would rise, winds would scatter their dust. The earth recycles relentlessly, and in that recycling, it erases much of what came before. Civilizations leave shadows, but only shadows, unless the conditions are just right to preserve their traces. That we find anything at all is remarkable. Yet there is also a philosophical question here. If civilizations before us rose and fell, what lessons were they meant to leave behind? Did they collapse because they exhausted their resources, because they ignored the balance of Earth's systems? Did they overreach, as myths of Atlantis suggest, consumed by pride? If Earth was made to grow civilizations, then perhaps it also allows them to fail, so that the soil of history is enriched for the next attempt. Each shadow civilization, whether real or imagined, may be part of a long sequence of experiments, teaching lessons that echo faintly into the present. And what about us? Could we too become one of these shadows? Imagine a far future where our cities are gone, our monuments crumbled, our records erased. Future beings, whether human or something else, might find fragments, skyscraper foundations, satellites fallen from orbit, bits of plastic in the soil, and wonder who we were. They might tell myths of us, just as we tell myths of Atlantis, imagining a civilization both great and flawed that disappeared into silence. In time, we too may join the ancient shadows, but for now, the shadows invite us to wonder. They remind us that what we see is not all there is, that history stretches deeper than memory. Civilizations may not be unique to our time, but woven into Earth's very fabric, appearing again and again like recurring dreams. And if Earth was made to grow civilizations, then these shadows are part of its long experiment, reminders that the story is older, more complex, and more mysterious than we know. So tonight, as you drift with this thought, picture Earth holding its ancient shadows quietly. Picture lost cities beneath the sea, forgotten temples under the jungle, stories carried across millennia in myth and legend. Picture civilizations blooming long before ours, their voices now faint, their traces now dim. And then, remember, we walk among their echoes, part of the same cycle, part of the same patient garden Earth has been tending for ages. 8. Underground and underwater. When we think of civilizations, we usually imagine them built under the open sky, cities stretching across plains, temples reaching upward, towers pointing toward the heavens. But what if some civilizations grew in places hidden from our sight, in the quiet beneath the earth or under the surface of the sea? If Earth was made to grow civilizations, perhaps not all of them bloomed where we expect. Some may have been sheltered, concealed, their traces erased, or yet to be discovered. The underground and the underwater are worlds we rarely see, but they are vast, and within them, civilizations could have found not only refuge but opportunity. Consider the underground first. Humans have always had a relationship with caves. Early ancestors painted animals on cavern walls, deep in places where no natural light reached. They stored food in cool underground chambers, buried their dead beneath the soil, and carved shelters into stone. These acts hint at more than survival. They suggest reverence, significance, even belonging. Underground spaces feel different than those on the surface. They are quieter, more stable, shielded from storms and predators. What if, in some forgotten age, people chose not to use caves merely as shelters but as permanent homes, building entire societies beneath the earth? It may not be as unlikely as it sounds. In Turkey, the region of Cappadocia holds vast underground cities, carved into soft volcanic rock. Some of them were large enough to house thousands of people, with tunnels, ventilation shafts, and even stables for animals. They were built as refuges during times of invasion, but they prove the possibility of entire communities thriving below ground. If this was possible in recorded history, who is to say it was not also possible much earlier, in times whose memory we have lost? The underground could hold civilizations erased from the surface, their ruins sealed by rockfalls and sediment, indistinguishable now from natural formations. Beneath the earth, the conditions would have been harsh but manageable. Fungi grow without sunlight, feeding on decay. Underground rivers flow through caverns. Firelight provides warmth and glow. Imagine generations raised in such places, their lives measured not by dawn and dusk but by cycles of routine. For them, the surface might have seemed dangerous, unpredictable, less safe than stone walls and stable temperatures. Their myths might have warned against the open sky, teaching that safety lay below, in the embrace of the earth itself. Such a civilization might have thrived unseen, its traces now hidden forever beneath collapsing tunnels and layers of time. And then there is the sea. If Earth was made to grow civilizations, the ocean was its first cradle, and perhaps it continued to grow societies there, long after life came to land. We know less about the deep oceans than we do about the surfaces of other planets. More than 80% of the seafloor remains unmapped. Entire mountain ranges, trenches deeper than Everest, its tall, vast plains of volcanic rock all lie hidden beneath miles of water. If civilizations ever flourished there, they could remain invisible to us, erased by shifting currents, buried beneath sediments, or still living in depths we cannot yet reach. Stories from across the world hint at this possibility. Legends of merfolk, of underwater kingdoms, of sunken cities, tales of Lemuria, of Atlantis, of realms beneath the sea. These myths may be symbolic, or they may be echoes of real memories. Civilizations that lived by the shore and were swallowed by rising seas, their remains now hidden below the waves. The last ice age ended only 12,000 years ago, and in that time, oceans rose by hundreds of feet, drowning coastlines where people once lived. If early civilizations built near those shores, their ruins now lie underwater, waiting in silence. Even in modern times, discoveries support this idea. Off the coast of India, near Dwarka, structures have been found that may be the remains of ancient settlements, now submerged. Near Japan, the Yonaguni Monument lies beneath the sea, with steps and terraces that appear carved, though some debate whether it is natural or human-made. Across the globe, sonar and divers reveal hints of structures where there should be none, stirring questions about civilizations that may have stood before the seas rose. Perhaps these are fragments of a chapter in Earth's story that we have only begun to glimpse. Underwater civilizations need not look like ours. Imagine beings adapted to the sea, building with coral, weaving homes in kelp forests, carving halls within undersea cliffs. Their monuments might not rise into the air but extend into the currents. Their culture might be carried in song, in patterns of light, in shifting schools of movement rather than carved stone. To us, such a civilization might leave no trace we recognize. Yet to Earth it would still count as one of its blooms, another form of society grown from its vast garden. Whether underground or underwater, these hidden civilizations remind us that we see only a fraction of what is possible. Earth is far larger, far deeper, far more mysterious than the surface landscapes we walk each day. Beneath our feet and beneath the waves, entire worlds exist, many of them unexplored, some of them perhaps carrying secrets of civilizations that rose and fell without leaving clear traces. The soil of time and the ocean's hand are both capable of hiding as much as they reveal. If Earth was made to grow civilizations, then perhaps some were meant to be hidden. Not all blooms are meant to be seen. Some enrich the soil quietly, unseen by later eyes. Perhaps underground and underwater civilizations served as experiments, trials in different conditions. Perhaps they were part of the balance, part of the rhythm, part of the long cycle that keeps the Garden of Earth alive. Their shadows linger in myth and mystery, inviting us to wonder, to imagine, to remember that the story of civilization is much older and stranger than the pages we have written so far. So tonight, as you let your mind wander, picture those hidden worlds. Picture caverns glowing with firelight, voices echoing in stone corridors, children growing up never knowing the Sunday. Picture undersea cities drifting in the blue, their walls alive with coral, their streets lit by bioluminescence, their songs carried by currents. These may be only imaginings, but they remind us of the vastness of Earth's possibilities. Civilizations may not only grow under open skies, but in the hidden depths, in places where silence holds their memory, waiting for us to listen. 9. The Great Filter Revisited. When people look to the stars, one of the deepest questions they ask is why the universe seems so silent. The cosmos is vast, with billions of galaxies, each holding billions of stars, many of them with planets that could, in theory, support life. By sheer numbers, civilizations should be common. And yet, when we listen for signals, when we search for signs, we find nothing. This is the heart of what is known as the Fermi paradox, the puzzle of why we seem to be alone. One answer that has been offered is called the Great Filter, the idea that somewhere along the path, from simple life to advanced civilization, there is a barrier that most never pass. Perhaps life is common, but civilizations are rare, and intelligence almost always fails before it can spread. But what if Earth was made to grow civilizations? What if, rather than being a rare accident, we are here because the planet itself was prepared as a nursery, a test field, a safe harbor where civilizations could rise again and again? In that light, the Great Filter may not be something to fear, but something to reconsider. Maybe it is not that civilizations fail everywhere, but that Earth is one of the few places designed to let them grow, to let them reach the stage where questions like these can even be asked. Think of how many challenges life has already overcome here. Asteroids have struck, wiping out entire lineages. Ice ages have frozen much of the planet. Volcanoes have darkened the skies. Yet each time, life has returned, often stronger, more diverse, more prepared for the next challenge. Civilizations, too, have followed this pattern, rising, falling, and rising again. Perhaps what looks like fragility is actually resilience. Each fall is not an end, but a step in a longer process. If the Great Filter exists, maybe Earth has been designed to guide us through it, one cycle at a time. Consider how rare Earth might be. We orbit a stable star, not too violent, not too faint. We are shielded by a large moon that steadies our tilt and creates tides that shaped early life. We have giant planets like Jupiter acting as guardians, pulling away many of the comets and asteroids that might otherwise strike us. Our atmosphere is balanced, our magnetic field strong enough to shield us. These conditions are not common, at least not in every system. If civilizations are seeds, perhaps Earth is the soil carefully prepared for them, a place chosen or shaped to give them the best chance of sprouting. And yet, even here, civilizations do not simply rise and endure forever. They struggle, they collapse, they begin again. It is as though Earth insists on testing, not allowing permanence too quickly, not letting the experiment settle into one final form. If the Great Filter is the tendency of civilizations to destroy themselves, perhaps Earth counters it by giving second chances, by allowing collapse to be a form of renewal rather than extinction. Where elsewhere in the cosmos civilizations may fail only once, here they fail and rise again, like tides, like seasons. The silence of the stars might not mean we are alone. It might mean we are early, or that others are still hidden in their own cycles, their own stages of rise and fall. Perhaps the Great Filter is not a wall, but a rhythm, one that Earth has learned to work with. If Earth was made to grow civilizations, it may have been given or may have developed the ability to cushion collapse, to recycle lessons, to preserve fragments that carry forward into the next age. In this way, the filter becomes less of a final barrier and more of a challenge that strengthens what comes after. There is another possibility. Maybe civilizations elsewhere do not last long enough to send signals into space, or they choose not to. Maybe they turn inward, focusing on balance with their own planets rather than expansion. Earth may be unusual not only in hosting civilizations, but in guiding them toward communication, exploration, and curiosity. If that is true, then our role is not only to grow, but to listen, to recognize that our silence in the cosmos may mirror the silences of countless other worlds, each tending its own experiments, each following its own rhythm. The great filter, in this light, becomes less frightening. Instead of a looming doom, it becomes part of the natural cycle. Civilizations may rise and fall many times before reaching stability. Perhaps permanence is not the goal. Perhaps Earth's gift is resilience, not immortality. Civilizations bloom, fail, and bloom again, like flowers in a garden. The silence of the stars may simply mean that most gardens are still in bloom, still in cycle, not yet ready to reach beyond their borders. And yet, there is something haunting about this thought. If Earth was indeed prepared to grow civilizations, then we carry a responsibility. We are the current bloom, the present attempt. What we choose to do matters, not only for ourselves, but for the larger experiment. Will we learn from the shadows of past civilizations? Will we balance growth with care, ambition with humility? Or will we, too, join the long line of collapsed societies, leaving only fragments for the next to find? Earth may be patient, but we are fleeting, and the choices we make will determine whether our civilization becomes a stepping stone or something more enduring. Still, there is comfort in knowing that the experiment does not end with us. Even if we falter, Earth will try again. It has done so many times before, it will do so many times again. The soil of time, the ocean's hand, the balancing act of nature, all will continue their work. Civilizations may be fragile, but Earth is resilient. The great filter may sweep many away, but Earth seems determined to keep planting, to keep growing, until one day, perhaps, a civilization learns to endure beyond its cycle. So as you sit with this thought, picture the stars not as silent emptiness, but as gardens waiting in their own time. Picture Earth as one of the first to bloom, growing civilizations carefully, patiently against the odds. Picture the great filter not as a wall, but as a test, a challenge that Earth, through cycles of rise and fall, may one day help us overcome. And if that day comes, perhaps the silence of the stars will end, not with noise, but with harmony, as many gardens join their songs together at last. 10. Civilizations as seasons. When we think of civilizations, we often imagine them as singular, monumental achievements. We picture pyramids, temples, sprawling cities, and grand empires as if they were timeless, meant to stand forever. But when we step back, when we widen our view beyond centuries into millennia, civilizations begin to resemble something else entirely. They look like seasons. They rise in a spring of invention, flourish in a summer of abundance, strain in an autumn of overreach, and fade in a winter of collapse. And just as the turning of the seasons is not an end but a cycle, civilizations too seem to bloom and die, only to make room for new growth. The metaphor is not just poetic, it reflects the rhythms we see across history. Think of ancient Mesopotamia, often called the first cradle of civilization. It began in a springtime of fertile fields, when people first tamed rivers and sowed crops. Cities bloomed, writing was invented, temples rose. But in time, the soil grew tired, salinized by irrigation. Invasions came, trade shifted, and the summer of abundance gave way to the autumn of strain. Eventually, the once thriving city-states faded, leaving broken bricks where there had once been bustling streets. Yet, in the silence that followed, other cultures grew: Persia, Greece, Rome, each taking their turn as new seasons. Egypt too followed this rhythm. The early dynasties were like spring, full of experimentation, of grand building projects like the first pyramids. Then came the summer, when Egypt reached its height, commanding trade and wealth, recording knowledge in stone. The autumn was long, stretched across centuries of slow decline, invasions and internal fractures. And finally the winter, when Egypt was absorbed into other empires, its uniqueness blending into the wider world. Yet Egypt did not vanish. Its seeds scattered into later cultures, inspiring art, religion, and architecture for thousands of years. Winter, in this sense, was not an erasure but a transformation, the way fallen leaves nourish the soil for spring to return. The Maya offer another echo of this pattern. Their spring came with the rise of cities in the jungles, where they mapped the stars and built pyramids that still tower above the trees. Their summer was marked by flourishing trade, elaborate rituals, and immense monuments carved with glyphs of kings and gods. But drought and conflict strained them. Fields could not feed everyone. Wars eroded unity. Autumn came, and then winter cities abandoned, jungles reclaiming temples, the grandeur slipping into silence. Yet the Maya people remain, their culture adapted, their language still spoken, their traditions carried. Just as winter does not destroy the tree but prepares it for renewal, the Maya civilization did not truly end. It shifted into another form, waiting for its spring again. Why does this seasonal rhythm repeat? Perhaps because civilizations, like ecosystems, have natural life cycles. They expand as resources allow, grow dense with population, flourish with invention. Then pressures build soil exhaustion, climate shifts, internal conflict, outside threats. Eventually, the weight becomes too much, and the system collapses. But collapse is not simply destruction. It is renewal. It clears space, scatters seeds, allows new cultures to rise in the gaps. Civilizations are not immortal, but neither are they wasted. Each season prepares the next. Earth seems to encourage this rhythm. It never allows stability to last forever. Rivers shift, climates change, forests rise and fall. Civilizations are forced to adapt, and often they fail. But failure is not final. Lessons remain, preserved in myths, ruins, languages, and fragments of memory. Later societies pick up these lessons, consciously or unconsciously, and carry them forward. In this way, Earth turns civilizations into compost, recycling their wisdom into the soil of time. Each spring of civilization grows from the nutrients of those that came before. Even now, our own global civilization may be following this seasonal arc. We had a long spring, when agriculture spread and the first cities formed. We have lived through an extraordinary summer of abundance, with science, trade, and technology linking the world. But we also feel the strains of autumn climate shifts, resource pressures, conflicts that stretch across nations. Some fear that winter is approaching. And yet, winter need not mean an absolute end. It may mean transformation. Our collapse, if it comes, may be only another renewal, another chance for Earth to scatter seeds into something new. This way of seeing civilizations changes how we feel about them. Instead of mourning their ends as tragedies, we can see them as part of a natural cycle. Instead of fearing collapse, we can see it as composting, as clearing the ground for the next attempt. Civilizations as seasons reminds us that impermanence is not failure, it is life. It is how Earth grows, how it experiments, how it ensures variety and resilience. Imagine standing in a ruined city, grass growing between broken stones, trees pushing roots through old walls. At first it may feel like loss, but look closer and you see life returning. Birds nest in crumbled towers, soil forms from decayed mortar, seeds sprout in cracks. The ruins are not an end, but a bridge. The civilization that once stood there has become part of the earth again, and from it something new will grow. This is the cycle of seasons, written not only in forests and fields, but in civilizations themselves. So tonight, let yourself picture civilizations as more than isolated events. See them as seasons of a great garden, spring, full of promise, summer, rich with abundance, autumn, marked by strain and change, winter, quiet and transformative, and then spring again, somewhere else, in some new form. Earth as gardener keeps this rhythm, steady and patient, always ready for the next bloom. And we, living now, are simply in our season, part of the endless cycle that has been turning for as long as civilizations have grown. 11. The architecture of catastrophe. When we think about civilization, we often imagine its monuments, the pyramids, the aqueducts, the temples, the skyscrapers. But behind every monument is another kind of architecture, less visible but just as real, the architecture of catastrophe. Earth has shaped civilizations not only with fertile soil and gentle climates, but also with disasters, volcanoes, earthquakes, floods, and storms that strike suddenly, forcing societies to adapt, collapse, or transform. If Earth was made to grow civilizations, then perhaps catastrophe is part of the design, a way of testing, pruning, and reshaping what is built. The stage is not only prepared for triumph, but also for trial, as if the planet itself insists that growth must come with challenge. Consider the eruption of Vesuvius in 79 CE. In a single day, Pompeii and Herculaneum were buried in ash, their people frozen in time. To those who lived through it, it was devastation. Yet because of that catastrophe, we now have one of the most detailed glimpses into Roman life, preserved beneath the volcanic blanket. Catastrophe, in this case, became a kind of preservation, a gift to the future. The architecture of disaster is paradoxical. It destroys, but it also reveals, shaping not only the present but what will be remembered. Think of floods. The Nile's yearly flood was a blessing, spreading silt across Egypt's fields, allowing civilization to flourish. But floods elsewhere have swept entire villages away. Myths of great floods appear in cultures across the globe, often remembered as acts of destruction but also as moments of renewal. Floods wash away what has grown too fixed, too rigid, and in their wake they leave fertile soil, a clean slate for something new. Civilizations may dread floods, but Earth uses them as part of its architecture, a force that erases while also preparing. Earthquakes, too, are part of this architecture. Cities built on fault lines rise high, only to be shaken down. The ancient city of Antioch suffered repeated destruction by quakes, each time rebuilt, each time reimagined. Even today, some of the world's greatest cities lie in seismic zones, fragile despite their strength. Earthquakes remind civilizations that permanence is an illusion, that what is built must always be ready to fall. And yet, rebuilding after an earthquake often brings innovation, stronger designs, new ways of living with the planet's restlessness. The architecture of catastrophe forces civilizations to learn resilience. Volcanoes, floods, earthquakes, storms, they are all destructive, but they are also strangely creative. They change landscapes, open new lands, replenish soil, alter rivers, and even shape trade routes. The eruption of Thera in the Aegean Sea may have ended the Minoan civilization, but it also reshaped Mediterranean history, creating opportunities for others to rise. The architecture of catastrophe is not random chaos. It is part of Earth's long rhythm, ensuring that civilizations are never too stable, never too permanent, always subject to change. And then there are the catastrophes that touch the whole world. The Chicxulub asteroid ended the reign of the dinosaurs, but without it, mammals might never have flourished, and humans might never have appeared. Ice ages came and went, forcing migrations, testing survival, shaping our ancestors into adaptable, inventive beings. Civilizations are fragile, but they grow in the cracks left by catastrophe. Without disaster, there might be no growth at all. The architecture of catastrophe ensures that civilizations are not stagnant but dynamic, pushed to evolve or fade. In this way, catastrophe becomes a kind of teacher. It tests the strength of societies, exposing weaknesses, forcing adaptation. Some civilizations crumble under the weight of disaster. Others find ways to endure, inventing new technologies, new stories, new resilience. Japan, for example, lives with earthquakes and tsunamis, and its culture reflects this awareness, blending fragility and strength in art, architecture, and philosophy. In places where catastrophe is common, civilizations often become more inventive, more adaptable, more aware of the balance between human ambition and Earth's power. Perhaps this is why myths so often describe gods or spirits connected to catastrophe. Volcanoes as the breath of deities, floods as divine punishment, earthquakes as the anger of the earth itself. These stories remind civilizations that disaster is not only natural but meaningful, and part of the world's order. They weave catastrophe into the narrative of civilization, not as random tragedy but as essential to the cycle. To live on Earth is to live with disaster, and to build civilization is to build with the knowledge that one day it may be swept away. If Earth was made to grow civilizations, then catastrophe may be part of the blueprint. It clears away what has grown too rigid. It prevents stagnation. It humbles arrogance. It forces renewal. Without it, civilizations might grow too secure, too unchanging, locked into patterns that never evolve. With it, civilizations must remain flexible, inventive, aware of their limits. Catastrophe, harsh as it feels, may be Earth's way of ensuring that civilizations grow not just upward, but deeper, more resilient, more connected to the rhythms of the planet. There is a strange comfort in this. Catastrophe is frightening, but it is also universal. Every civilization faces it. Every culture has endured it. and from every collapse, something new has grown. The architecture of catastrophe is built into Earth itself, shaping the stories of civilizations as surely as rivers carve valleys and mountains rise from stone. It is not separate from civilization but a part of it, a hidden hand that guides the cycle of rise and fall. So, tonight, as you let this thought settle, imagine the monuments of civilization not only standing tall but also crumbling, reshaped by disaster, folded back into the earth. Imagine volcanoes not only destroying but also enriching soil. Imagine floods not only drowning but also nourishing fields. Imagine earthquakes not only toppling but also teaching resilience. Catastrophe is part of the architecture of civilization, built into the very foundations of Earth's design. And if Earth was made to grow civilizations, then perhaps it was also made to test them, to break them, and to help them begin again. 12. Technology as fruit. When we look at the story of civilizations, one of the most striking features is how they bear fruit. Not the fruit of orchards or fields, but the fruit of technology. It begins humbly, with stone chipped into tools, with fire coaxed into flame, with clay shaped into pots. From these small beginnings, civilizations grow branches heavy with invention. Wheels turn, plows cut furrows, boats ride rivers, writing carries memory, metal gleams in weapons and jewelry. As centuries pass, the fruits multiply, each invention building on the last, until entire worlds of possibility hang from the tree of civilization. If Earth was made to grow civilizations, then perhaps technology is its harvest, the fruit it waits to see ripen in every age. It is easy to forget how much of technology is born directly from Earth itself. Flint was shaped into blades because it fractured cleanly. Fire was discovered because lightning struck dry grass. Bronze appeared when copper and tin were found near each other in the ground. Iron came when people learned to coax metal from ore with heat. Each step was not only human ingenuity but Earth's offering materials placed in reach, challenges set like puzzles waiting to be solved. The fruits of technology grow from the soil of geology, from the gifts Earth has stored in stone and metal. Consider the wheel, often hailed as one of humanity's greatest inventions. It seems simple now, but it transformed the world. With wheels came carts, chariots, wagons, trade and travel. But the wheel was not inevitable. It required smooth surfaces, strong materials, and the need to move heavy loads across land. Earth provided the conditions: flat plains, workable wood, beasts to harness, and humans reached for the fruit. Once plucked, it spread everywhere, reshaping civilizations. One fruit led to countless branches: gears, pulleys, mills, and engines. Writing, too, was a fruit of civilization. It began as marks pressed into clay or carved into stone. But why clay? Why stone? Because Earth offered them. The rivers of Mesopotamia left mud that hardened into tablets. Quarries provided stone that preserved hieroglyphs. Without these materials, perhaps writing would have taken another form, or come later, or not at all. With writing came record-keeping, storytelling, law, history. Civilizations could extend their memory beyond the lifespan of any individual. Writing was not just fruit, it was seed, allowing knowledge to spread and grow across generations. Technology is not always gentle. The same fruit that nourishes can also wound. Bronze and iron brought not only tools and plows but swords and spears. Gunpowder gave fireworks and cannons alike. Electricity gave both light and weapons of unimaginable power. Civilizations, in bearing this fruit, face a constant test. Will the harvest be used to nourish or to destroy? Perhaps this is part of Earth's design, part of the experiment. It offers the fruit, but it does not dictate how it will be eaten. Each civilization must decide, and in that decision, its fate is often sealed. Some fruits appear again and again, independently across the world. Agriculture arose in Mesopotamia, in China, in the Americas, in Africa, all separately, yet all following the same path. Civilizations needed to plant seeds, and Earth gave them wheat, rice, maize, sorghum, different fruits, but the same impulse. Navigation, too, appeared in many places. Polynesians read the stars to cross the Pacific, while Norse sailors steered by the sun and the flight of birds. The fruit of exploration hung on Earth's tree, and different civilizations reached for it in their own way. It seems almost as if Earth ensures that certain fruits are always within reach, waiting for each civilization to find them. In our age, the tree of technology has grown heavy indeed. We have electricity, engines, computers, satellites. We split atoms, splice genes, send signals through invisible waves. These fruits are dazzling, abundant, almost overwhelming. But are they ripe? Have we plucked them too quickly, without understanding their weight? Civilizations of the past also gathered fruit, only to collapse when abundance outpaced wisdom. Fields overfarmed, forests cut too quickly, resources consumed until none remained. Technology can be fruit, but it can also be temptation. Earth may offer it, but it asks in return that civilizations learn balance. Perhaps technology itself is Earth's way of pushing civilizations forward. It is the visible expression of intelligence, the tangible harvest of thought. Without it, societies remain small, limited by the immediate environment. With it, they grow, extend, connect, imagine. Technology is how civilizations leave traces, how they shape not only their own lives but the face of the planet itself. From irrigation canals visible from the air to satellites orbiting in space, the fruits of technology mark the presence of civilization unmistakably. But just as fruits on a tree eventually fall and return to the soil, so too do technologies fade. The knowledge of how to build Roman concrete was lost for centuries. The secrets of Damascus steel vanished. The engineering of Inca stonework remains partly mysterious. Fruits ripen, are eaten, and then sometimes vanish, leaving only seeds for future generations to rediscover. Earth, patient as always, allows civilizations to drop their fruits, knowing that some will sprout again when the time is right. There is a gentleness in seeing technology this way. Instead of marveling only at the speed or power of invention, we can see it as part of Earth's long cycle. Civilizations are gardeners, but also trees themselves, bearing fruit in season. Some fruits are sweet, some bitter, some dangerous. All are temporary. What matters is not only the fruit itself, but what it nourishes, what seeds it plants, what future it makes possible. So tonight, as you let your thoughts wander, imagine the long orchard of Earth's civilizations. Imagine Sumerian clay tablets like early blossoms, Egyptian pyramids as heavy fruit, Roman aqueducts hanging like clusters on a vine. Imagine Chinese compasses, Mayan calendars, Polynesian canoes, Greek philosophy, all different fruits from the same tree. Imagine our own fruits glowing with electricity, humming with silicon, orbiting in space. And then imagine them too, falling one day, returning to Earth, feeding the soil for whatever comes next. If Earth was made to grow civilizations, then technology is its harvest, the fruit it waits for, again and again. 13. Silent observers. If Earth was made to grow civilizations, then another question emerges, one that lingers quietly in the background. Who or what is watching? When we look at the patterns of history, the cycles of rise and fall, the balance of catastrophe and renewal, the gifts of fertile valleys and rich oceans, it sometimes feels less like randomness and more like orchestration. And if there is orchestration, there may be an audience, silent observers who wait, who watch, who see civilizations as part of a story unfolding. These observers may not be people as we imagine them, nor gods in the old sense, but something vast, something patient, something that does not intervene but simply witnesses the growth of Earth's many blooms. The idea of watchers is not new. Myths from across the world speak of beings who see everything, the gods who look down from Olympus, the spirits who watch from the mountains, the ancestors who linger in the stars. Even today, some wonder if extraterrestrial civilizations might be watching us from afar, quietly waiting until we reach a certain point before making contact. But perhaps the observers are closer than we think. Perhaps the silent witness is Earth itself, not alive in the way we are, but conscious in ways we cannot measure, keeping track of every bloom and every collapse without ever speaking aloud. Think about how Earth records everything. Layers of rock preserve the movements of seas and continents. Ice cores hold bubbles of ancient air. Fossils record the shapes of creatures long gone. Even our own activities are inscribed in the planet. The traces of cities, the isotopes from nuclear tests, the carbon from our industry. Earth remembers, even if we forget. In that sense, it is always observing, always keeping the story safe in its layers. Civilizations may fall silent, but Earth itself is never silent. It is the ultimate archive, the quiet observer that gathers every note of the symphony. And what of the possibility of watchers beyond Earth? The stars shine down, countless and ancient. If life exists elsewhere, some of it may be older than us, perhaps much older. If Earth was made to grow civilizations, perhaps it was prepared by others, seeded or guided by hands we cannot see. The watchers, then, might be those who planted us, waiting to see what kind of fruit this garden would bear. They may not interfere because the point is not control but observation, to see whether intelligence can bloom again, to see what shapes it takes, to see what stories it writes. We may not know them, but if they exist, they have always been here in silence, patient and hidden. It is also possible that the observers are not others at all, but ourselves stretched across time. Future civilizations may look back on us, studying our ruins, reading our records, wondering how we lived and why we fell. To them, we will be the silent civilization, the ones who came before. In a way, the watchers are always both before and after, both past and future, tied together by Earth's long cycles. We are observed not only by those who might look from the stars, but also by those who will inherit this planet after us. We are, in this moment, both actors and subjects, both storytellers and story. And then there are the moments when we feel observed, not by gods, not by aliens, not by future beings, but simply by the quiet presence of nature itself. The forest seems to listen, the ocean seems to gaze, the mountains seem to stand as witnesses. Perhaps this is only our projection, but perhaps it is also true in ways we cannot yet understand. If Earth was made to grow civilizations, it may also have been made to watch them, to feel them, to remember them in ways deeper than science can measure. Observation may be woven into the very fabric of the planet. What does it mean to be observed? For some, it inspires caution, as though we must live carefully, knowing our actions are seen. For others, it brings comfort, the sense that we are not alone, that someone, somewhere, notices what we do. Civilizations, too, carry this feeling. Ancient peoples built monuments aligned with the stars, perhaps believing the heavens were watching. Others built shrines to ancestors, inviting their presence. Even now, we launch golden records into space, not knowing if anyone will ever find them, but acting as though someone will. Perhaps civilizations instinctively sense the presence of observers, and perhaps this is part of what drives them to build, to record, to leave something behind. If the watchers are silent, it may be because silence is necessary. To observe is not always to intervene. A gardener plants seeds but does not force them to grow. Growth must come on its own. An audience watches a play without leaping on stage. If civilizations are Earth's blooms, then silence is part of their test. Only by struggling without help do they reveal their true form. Only by choosing freely do they show what kind of intelligence they really are. The silent observers, whoever they may be, may wait not for perfection but simply for authenticity, for the unfolding of what civilizations truly become. It is humbling to imagine ourselves as part of this experiment, one civilization among many, growing under the watchful eyes of silent observers. We do not know if they are Earth itself, the cosmos, beings beyond us, or simply the future looking back, but their silence is powerful. It allows us to choose, to rise, to fall, to try again. The stage is set, the cycles turn, the balance holds, and always, somewhere, someone, or something is watching, keeping the memory safe. So tonight, as you drift into this thought, imagine civilizations as stories told to an unseen listener. Imagine every temple, every city, every song as part of a conversation with silent observers. Imagine Earth itself as one of those listeners, recording everything patiently, layer by layer. And whether or not there are others beyond the stars, take comfort in knowing that nothing is lost, that everything we do is witnessed, not in judgment, but in presence. Civilizations bloom, civilizations fall, but always they are observed. Always the story is kept. 14. The patterns of history. When we look at the rise and fall of civilizations, it is tempting to see each one as unique, as if its story belongs only to its own people, its own geography, its own moment in time. Yet when we step back, when we compare Egypt to Mesopotamia, the Maya to China, Greece to the Indus Valley, patterns begin to appear. Civilizations, though separated by oceans and centuries, often follow similar arcs. They discover agriculture, they build cities, they develop writing, they raise monuments, they trade, they fight, they collapse. The details differ, but the rhythm is familiar. It is as if history itself has patterns, repeating motifs that Earth encourages, as though it were teaching the same lesson again and again, just in different voices. Think first of agriculture. In Mesopotamia, people learned to plant wheat and barley along the Tigris and Euphrates. In China, rice and millet were cultivated along the Yellow River. In the Americas, maize became the foundation of great cultures. In Africa, sorghum and yams sustained communities. These discoveries did not spread from one single source. They appeared independently in distant lands, separated by oceans. How curious, then, that civilizations in such different places all found their spring in the same pattern: planting, harvesting, storing, and settling. It is as though Earth whispered the same idea to many peoples, encouraging them to take root and grow. Writing followed a similar path: cuneiform in Mesopotamia, hieroglyphs in Egypt, oracle bone script in China, glyphs among the Maya. Each arose without direct contact. Each one turned spoken words into marks that endured, allowing memory to stretch across generations. Again, the pattern repeated. Civilizations, once they reached a certain size, seemed to need writing, as if it were a natural flowering of complexity. Earth may not write itself, but it seems to encourage us to write, to record, to leave marks for those who will come after. Monuments, too, appear everywhere. The pyramids of Egypt, the ziggurats of Mesopotamia, the temples of Angkor, the stone heads of Easter Island. Why do civilizations, so different in belief and location, all build structures meant to last, meant to impress, meant to speak to the future? Perhaps it is because civilizations sense their own impermanence, and monuments are their attempt to anchor themselves in time. Yet even these monuments, no matter how massive, eventually fall. The pattern holds: rise, flourish, attempt permanence, fade. Trade networks also repeat. The Silk Road connected Asia and Europe. The Indian Ocean carried goods between Africa, Arabia, India, and China. The Mediterranean tied together countless cultures. In the Americas, trade linked the highlands of the Andes with coastal peoples and jungle communities. Everywhere, civilizations reached out, exchanging goods, stories, ideas. It is as if once civilizations bloom, they inevitably stretch toward each other, pulled into webs of connection. Earth, by scattering resources unevenly, ensured that no civilization could remain entirely alone. Salt, obsidian, metals, spices, all were scattered like lures, drawing people into contact. The pattern of exchange repeats across every continent. And then comes conflict. Civilizations defend, expand, collide, armies march, borders shift, empires rise and crumble. The tools differ: bronze spears, iron swords, gunpowder, but the pattern remains. Conflict, for better or worse, becomes one of history's repeating motifs. Yet even here, Earth plays its part. Mountains, rivers, deserts shape where battles are fought and where empires expand. Geography guides conflict, as though Earth itself arranges the pieces on the board, ensuring that no civilization can escape the game for long. But perhaps the most striking pattern is collapse. Civilizations strain their resources, face climate shifts, endure invasions, or simply grow too complex to sustain themselves. Collapse does not always mean total disappearance. Sometimes it is transformation, absorption into another culture, or a slow fading into fragments. But it happens again and again, across continents and centuries. The pattern is so consistent that it feels almost deliberate, as though Earth insists that civilizations cannot remain unchanged, that renewal must follow decline. Collapse, too, becomes part of the cycle, part of the garden's way of composting what has grown. Why do these patterns repeat? Perhaps because civilizations are not only human creations but responses to Earth itself. The same rivers encourage farming. The same need for memory encourages writing. The same impulse to connect encourages trade. The same limitations encourage collapse. We think of history as human, but perhaps history is also Earth's, a reflection of its conditions, its rhythms, its balance. If Earth was made to grow civilizations, then it was also made to shape them into similar patterns, guiding them along paths that ensure growth, learning, and renewal. This way of seeing history changes its weight. Instead of looking at the ruins of past civilizations with sadness, we can see them as part of Earth's pattern, necessary stages in a cycle larger than any one culture. Instead of fearing collapse as failure, we can see it as transition, part of the rhythm. Instead of marveling that different civilizations made the same discoveries, we can see it as Earth's quiet hand, offering the same fruits again and again, waiting for each civilization to pluck them in its own way. It also humbles us. Our modern civilization often sees itself as different, exceptional, outside the old cycles, but the patterns are still here. We farm, we build monuments of steel and glass, we write in glowing screens, we trade across the world, we face conflict, and we feel the pressures of strain. We too may follow the pattern, no matter how advanced we believe ourselves to be. The difference may be only in scale and speed, not in kind. Earth has grown many civilizations, and each one has thought itself permanent. Yet the patterns remind us, permanence is not part of the design. So tonight, let yourself picture history not as a straight line but as a tapestry, woven with repeating motifs. Agriculture as one thread, writing as another, monuments and trade and collapse as others still. Each civilization weaves these motifs into its own design, unique yet familiar, new yet repeating. Earth, as the loom, provides the tension, the structure, the balance that makes the tapestry possible. And when a thread ends, another begins, always within the same rhythm, always within the same pattern. 15. Civilizations beyond ours. It is natural to see our own civilization as the centerpiece of Earth's story. After all, we are the ones alive now, the ones building cities that glow at night, the ones leaving footprints on the moon. But if Earth was made to grow civilizations, then we may not be the first, and we will almost certainly not be the last. Our place in the story may be only a chapter, a fleeting season in a much larger book. Civilizations may have risen before us in forms we cannot fully imagine, and others may come after us, growing from the soil we leave behind. The thought humbles us, reminding us that Earth's experiment is far greater than our own brief bloom. When we look back, we already see hints of this truth. Civilizations before us, the Sumerians, Egyptians, Maya, Greeks, Indus Valley peoples, built worlds as real and complex as ours. They made discoveries, told stories, raised monuments, and left legacies. To themselves, they were the center of history. To us, they are the past. In the same way, one day, our civilization may be only a memory, studied by others who live in cities we cannot picture, who build with materials we do not yet know, who look back at us as we look back at the ancients. We are not the final bloom, we are one among many. But perhaps civilizations beyond ours are not only in the future. Perhaps some came long before us, in times so distant that their traces are gone. Earth is 4.5 billion years old. Human civilization is only a few thousand years old. That gap is vast, almost unimaginable. What if other civilizations grew here long before humans, rising in forgotten ages, then collapsing, leaving behind only the faintest of whispers? We assume we would see their ruins, but time is a patient eraser. Stone crumbles, metals rust, forests reclaim, oceans rise. A few million years is enough to wipe almost any trace. If a civilization bloomed 50 million years ago, would we even know? The idea seems strange, but Earth has offered us hints. Myths speak of lost civilizations, Atlantis, Lemuria, lands swallowed by the sea. These may be stories, or they may be memories, distorted by time. Archaeology occasionally uncovers anomalies, tools where they should not be, structures older than expected. Most have natural explanations, but the possibility remains. Earth may have grown other civilizations, ones forgotten not because they were unimportant, but because the cycles of geology and climate have buried them. We cannot yet say for sure, but the question itself expands our imagination. And what of civilizations beyond ours in form, not just in time? Must every civilization look like us human beings building cities of stone and steel? Or could intelligence bloom differently? Dolphins with their language of clicks and whistles, crows with their tools, octopuses with their problem-solving, all hint that Earth experiments with intelligence in many forms. If conditions had favoured them differently, Perhaps another species might have risen to dominance. Even now, they may carry civilizations of their own, subtle, small, invisible to us because we expect them to look like ours. Civilizations beyond ours may not be after us in time, but alongside us in form, hidden in plain sight. Looking ahead, we can imagine civilizations that might follow ours. Perhaps after a collapse, new societies will rise from the fragments of our world. They may inherit our ruins, learn from our mistakes, build differently. Perhaps they will live more lightly on Earth, finding balance where we did not. Or perhaps they will grow in directions we cannot imagine, biological merging with machine, consciousness carried in ways that no longer need bodies, cities not built of stone but of energy and light. Civilizations beyond ours may not only be human, they may be something entirely new, something Earth has been preparing for all along. It is comforting to realize that even if we fall, Earth will not stop. The soil will remain fertile for new growth. The oceans will continue to cradle life. Forests will return, mountains will shift, rivers will flow. Earth's experiment will not end with us. We are part of the garden, not the gardener. Civilizations will bloom again, as they always have, as they always will. Our role is not to be the final flower, but to add our colour to the field, to scatter our seeds into the future. This perspective softens our anxieties. We fear collapse because we think it means the end, but civilizations beyond ours remind us that endings are always beginnings in disguise. If we falter, Earth will try again. If we succeed, we will become the foundation for what comes next. Either way, the experiment continues. The story unfolds, the garden grows. We are not the first civilization, nor the last. We are one bloom in an endless cycle. So tonight, let yourself imagine civilizations beyond ours. Imagine ancient ones, long vanished, their traces hidden in stone and sea. Imagine parallel ones, built by species we overlook, their intelligence carried in songs or currents or movements of light. Imagine future ones, rising from our ruins, inheriting our dreams, surpassing us in ways we cannot yet conceive. And in all of them, imagine Earth, steady and patient, growing civilizations as easily as it grows forests, tending them season after season, always ready for the next bloom. 16. Lessons in collapse. When we look at the ruins of civilizations, it is easy to see only the silence, the empty temples, the fallen walls, the roads that lead nowhere. It can feel like loss, as if something precious was destroyed forever. But collapse is not only an end, it is also a teacher. Every civilization that has fallen has left behind lessons, traces of what worked, what failed, what endured. Collapse, painful as it may be for those who live through it, is part of Earth's way of teaching civilizations how to grow. If Earth was made to grow civilizations, then perhaps collapse is not punishment but instruction, not failure but guidance. Think of Rome. At its height, it stretched across continents, binding together millions of people with roads, laws, and armies. When it fell, Europe fractured. Cities shrank, trade faltered, knowledge was scattered. For centuries afterward, people looked back on Rome as a golden age, yet from its ruins came new things. Languages that evolved into French, Spanish, Italian, ideas of law and governance that still shape nations today. Roads and aqueducts that lasted centuries longer than the empire itself. Rome collapsed, but it did not vanish. Its lessons carried forward, reshaped into the foundation for what came next. The collapse itself was part of the teaching, part of the renewal. The Maya too collapsed. Their great cities were abandoned, their pyramids swallowed by jungle. To outside eyes, it looked like disappearance. Yet the Maya people survived, adapted, and still live today. Their languages are spoken, their traditions continue. The lesson of the Maya is that collapse is not the same as extinction. A civilization may fall, but its culture can endure in quieter forms, weaving itself into the future in ways less visible but no less real. Collapse teaches resilience, the art of survival beyond grandeur. Other lessons come from what civilizations did wrong. The Sumerians irrigated their fields until the soil turned salty and barren. The Easter Islanders cut down their forests until they had no trees left. These collapses warn us of overuse, of taking too much, of failing to live within balance. They remind us that civilizations, no matter how strong, are bound by Earth's limits. To forget those limits is to invite decline. Collapse becomes a stern teacher, showing what happens when balance is lost. And yet, collapse also creates opportunities. When the Bronze Age civilizations of the Eastern Mediterranean fell, new cultures rose in their place, smaller, more flexible, carrying fragments of the old world but also inventing the new. Out of collapse came the conditions for change, for growth in new directions. Collapse clears the field, breaks the rigid structures, makes space for something else to grow. In this way, Earth seems to use collapse as a kind of pruning, cutting back what has overreached, allowing light and space for new shoots to appear. It is tempting to think collapse can be avoided if only a civilization is wise enough, careful enough, prepared enough. Perhaps this is true. But history suggests that collapse is not always failure. It is often part of the cycle itself. Civilizations rise, they flourish, they strain, they falter, and then they fall. Each time, something is carried forward. Each time, something new grows in the ashes. Collapse is not the end of the story. It is one of the chapters Earth insists on writing. Even our own civilization, global and complex, is not immune. We face challenges, climate shifts, resource depletion, social strains that echo the warnings of past collapses. Some fear we may be heading toward our own decline, but perhaps the lesson is not despair but humility. Collapse is always possible, but it is also always transformative. If we collapse, Earth will continue. Life will go on, and from our ruins, something new will rise, carrying forward pieces of what we built, pieces of what we learned. Our task is not to fear collapse, but to learn from it, to carry as many lessons as we can into the future, whether for ourselves or for those who come after us. Collapse also teaches us about time. Civilizations often see themselves as permanent, but collapse reminds us that permanence is an illusion. Everything changes, everything passes. And yet, nothing is wasted. Even ruins have value. They inspire, they warn, they teach. Standing among the ruins of Machu Picchu or Angkor Wat, one feels not only loss but also awe, a sense of continuity, a reminder that we are part of something larger than ourselves. Collapse teaches us to see beyond the present, to place our moment in the long rhythm of Earth's story. So perhaps we should not ask how to prevent collapse entirely, but how to collapse well, how to leave behind lessons, seeds, fragments that can nourish what comes next. If collapse is inevitable, then it can still be generous. It can still offer something to the future. Civilizations that leave behind wisdom, beauty, and memory collapse with grace. Those that leave only scars collapse without teaching. The choice may be ours, not in whether collapse comes, but in what kind of lesson it gives. In this way, Earth uses collapse as part of its curriculum. Civilizations grow, experiment, reach, and then falter. But in faltering, they reveal truths, they scatter seeds, they open paths for others. Collapse is harsh, but it is also creative. It is Earth's way of reminding civilizations that they are not separate from the planet but part of it, bound by its rhythms, shaped by its cycles. Collapse is not failure, it is feedback, the soil of renewal, the teacher that never leaves the classroom of history. So tonight, as you rest with this thought, imagine the ruins of the past not as graves but as lessons carved in stone. Imagine each fallen city as a page in Earth's book, written not in ink but in dust and memory. Imagine our own civilization as part of that same book, still being written, still being read. Collapse may come, but it will not be the end. It will be another lesson, another step, another chance for Earth to grow something new. 17. Earth's memory. When we think of memory, we imagine the fragile traces in our own minds, moments stored in the shifting currents of the brain, vulnerable to time and forgetting. But Earth has its own memory, far older and more enduring. Civilizations may rise and fall, leaving behind fragments, ruins, whispers, but Earth remembers all of it in ways both visible and hidden. The layers of stone, the sediments of the sea, the rings of trees, the ice that traps bubbles of ancient air, all of these are pages in a vast archive. If Earth was made to grow civilizations, then perhaps part of its design is that it also remembers them, carrying forward the traces of every experiment, every attempt, every story. Consider the way geology remembers. A cliff face is not just rock, it is a library. Each stratum tells of an era. Oceans that once covered land, deserts that stretched for miles, forests that turned to coal. In those layers, civilizations too leave their marks. Pottery shards buried in soil, bricks fused by fire, metals smelted into tools that later rust back into the earth. Archaeologists read these traces like sentences, piecing together stories from fragments. Earth records without judgment, keeping everything, from the grandest monument to the humblest discarded tool. Its memory is not selective but total, an archive of presence itself. Ice also remembers. Deep within glaciers lie cores of ice that hold bubbles of atmosphere from thousands, even hundreds of thousands of years ago. Within them, we can read not only the story of climate but also the story of civilization, traces of soot from ancient fires, changes in carbon as agriculture spread, signals of industry reaching even the poles. Civilizations may think themselves local, but Earth's memory records them globally, in air and water, as well as stone. Nothing we do is entirely lost. The air itself carries our stories. Even forests remember. The rings of trees show the years of growth and hardship, wide in times of abundance, narrow in years of drought. A forest is a timeline of weather, of soil, of sunlight. When civilizations rise nearby, the trees record their presence. Pollution in the air, changes in soil from farming, clearings cut into their expanse. Long after people are gone, the rings remain, telling of the seasons when humans shaped the land. In this way, forests are witnesses, their memories etched silently into their trunks. Earth also remembers in absence. Desert sands cover lost cities. Oceans rise to swallow coastlines where people once lived. Earth hides as much as it reveals, storing civilizations beneath layers that may never be uncovered. But even buried, even drowned, they are remembered. The ruins of Alexandria's ancient harbour still lie beneath the waves. The lost city of Pavlopetri rests on a seabed off Greece, its streets preserved by the sea. The jungles of Central America conceal temples that rise like hills, their memory intact though hidden. Earth remembers in patience, keeping records even when we forget where to look. And there is another kind of memory, less material but no less real. The memory carried in story. Myths and legends often preserve fragments of real events, floods, fires, migrations, collapses. They are Earth's memory told through human voices, passed from generation to generation. The great flood myths may be memories of seas rising at the end of the Ice Age. Tales of sunken cities may echo real places lost to the ocean. Myths of fire from the sky may recall meteor impacts or volcanic eruptions. These stories are Earth's memory refracted through culture, a softer archive but one that carries truths across millennia. Why does Earth remember? Perhaps because civilizations are part of its experiment, and memory is how experiments are preserved. Without memory, there is only repetition without learning. With memory, there is continuity, the chance for each civilization to inherit something from those before. Even when a culture collapses, its tools, its ruins, its stories remain, waiting for rediscovery. Earth, through its memory, ensures that nothing is truly wasted. Each bloom leaves seeds for the next. Each fall becomes compost for renewal. Yet Earth's memory is also fragile. Time erases much. Wood decays, fabric dissolves, even stone eventually crumbles. Entire civilizations can vanish with barely a trace, leaving only faint marks in the soil or myths in the mind. Perhaps this is part of the balance. Earth remembers enough to guide the next attempt, but not so much that the past overwhelms the present. Memory is selective, shaped by time, loss, and accident. In that way, Earth is both archivist and editor, keeping some things, discarding others, shaping the story through what survives. Even now, our own civilization is inscribing itself into Earth's memory. Our cities leave concrete, steel, and glass. Our machines leave plastics, alloys, radioactive isotopes. Our activities change the very composition of the air and the chemistry of the oceans. Future beings, human or otherwise, will be able to read these traces as clearly as we read the layers of past ages. They will know when we burned oil, when we split atoms, when we reshaped landscapes on a global scale. Our story is being written into Earth's memory every day, whether we intend it or not. There is something comforting in this thought. Even if our civilization falls, even if our cities crumble and our records are lost, Earth will remember. It will hold fragments of us in stone and air, in soil and sea. Perhaps not all will be preserved, but enough will remain that our existence will not be erased. We are part of Earth's archive now, as much as the trilobites in ancient rock, as much as the forests turned to coal. Our story will be remembered, even if no one remains to tell it. So tonight, imagine Earth's memory as a vast library without shelves, where every stone, every tree, every drop of ice holds a page. Imagine civilizations leaving their marks not only in monuments but in the chemistry of the sky, in the shapes of coastlines, in the songs of myths. Imagine our own marks joining them, written in steel, in concrete, in invisible gases drifting in the air. Civilizations may pass, but Earth remembers. And if Earth was made to grow civilizations, perhaps its greatest role is not only to grow them, but to remember them, to carry their stories forward into the long, patient memory of time. 18. Civilization as seed. When we think of civilization, we often imagine it as the final product of history, the peak of what life has been striving toward. Cities rise, knowledge accumulates, technology blooms, and we see it as the culmination of countless steps. But perhaps civilizations are not the fruit themselves. Perhaps they are the seeds. If Earth was made to grow civilizations, maybe its purpose is not simply to nurture them here, but to scatter them, to see what might take root elsewhere in the far future, on other worlds, or in ways we cannot yet imagine. Civilizations may not be ends in themselves, but beginnings, carriers of something larger, something meant to spread beyond their original soil. Seeds are small compared to the trees they might become, yet they hold within them the possibility of forests. Civilizations too may seem fragile, brief against the span of time, but within them are the elements that can grow into something far greater. Language, memory, technology, imagination, these are the kernels packed inside. When civilizations collapse, they may seem to vanish, but like seeds buried in the ground, their essence remains. They wait for conditions to change, for the right soil, for the right moment, and then they sprout again, in new forms, in new places. Think of how knowledge has been carried across ages. The philosophies of Greece survived Rome's fall, preserved in manuscripts copied by monks. The wisdom of ancient India travelled across Asia, shaping cultures far beyond its birthplace. The mathematics of the Islamic Golden Age seeded ideas that later sprouted in the European Renaissance. These are seeds scattered by civilizations, drifting across borders and centuries, sometimes forgotten, sometimes rediscovered, always carrying the potential to grow again. Even when the trees fall, the seeds remain. Earth itself may be designed to scatter seeds. Its cycles of catastrophe and renewal ensure that no civilization can last forever in one form. Instead, each is broken apart, its fragments carried into the soil of the future. Collapse, in this sense, is a kind of scattering, like wind shaking a tree until its seeds fall to the ground. Some seeds perish, others take root. Over time, a forest grows, not from one tree alone, but from generations of seeds, each carrying something forward. Civilizations, too, contribute their seeds' ideas, inventions, stories, ways of seeing the world that outlive the structures that first nurtured them. And perhaps the seeds are not meant only for Earth. For much of history, civilizations were bound to their lands, unable to travel far. But in recent centuries, we have begun to scatter ourselves more widely. Ships crossed oceans, carrying seeds of culture to new continents. Satellites orbit above, sending signals into the void. Probes leave the solar system, carrying messages etched in metal, recordings of our voices, maps of our place in the stars. These are seeds too, flung into the dark, perhaps never to be found, but perhaps waiting for the right soil, the distant intelligence, a far-off time, a world not yet born. Civilizations as seeds may also mean that our role is not permanence but preparation. A seed does not last forever. Its purpose is to sprout, to give rise to something else. Civilizations, then, may be meant to give birth to futures they themselves cannot inhabit. We may not be the final form of intelligence, but the soil in which the next grows. Our technologies may be the husks from which new life emerges. Our knowledge may be the nutrients for something beyond us. In this way, civilizations are not failures when they fall. They are seeds that have done their work, passing on what they carried. This perspective changes how we see collapse. Instead of mourning it as death, we can see it as germination. A seed must split to grow. A civilization must dissolve to scatter its gifts. What matters is not how long a civilization lasts, but what it leaves behind, what seeds it plants in the soil of history. Some civilizations leave monuments, others leave stories, others leave tools, inventions, or philosophies. Each contributes something to the great orchard of Earth, something that may sprout long after the original civilization is gone. Even now, we can ask, what seeds are we leaving? Our libraries, our satellites, our ruins, our digital archives, all are seeds of a kind. Some may wither, some may endure. Some may be rediscovered by beings we cannot yet imagine. Perhaps one day, long after our cities are gone, fragments of our language will be read by others. Perhaps one of our satellites, drifting for eons, will be found by another civilization, its golden record playing a message across the void. Perhaps our seeds will travel farther than we ever dreamed, carried not only through space but through time itself. And perhaps civilizations themselves are the seeds of something even larger. Just as forests are not only collections of trees but living systems, perhaps civilizations are not ends in themselves but parts of a larger bloom, a galactic garden slowly coming into being. Each world grows its own seeds, each scatters them into the cosmos, and together they form something greater than any single civilization could. Earth may be one gardener among many, one planet among countless others, each preparing seeds for the same long harvest. So tonight, let yourself imagine civilizations as seeds. Imagine the ruins of past empires not as losses but as husks, their seeds already scattered, already sprouting elsewhere. Imagine our own civilization not as the final bloom but as a seed pod, heavy with potential, waiting for the wind. Imagine Earth as a vast orchard, where each civilization is one seed among millions, grown and scattered with patience, season after season. If Earth was made to grow civilizations, perhaps its true purpose is not in the blooms we see now, but in the seeds they scatter, in the forests that may one day rise across time and space. 19. The Cosmic Garden. If Earth was made to grow civilizations, then perhaps it is not alone. Perhaps our world is only one garden among countless others, scattered across the galaxy like flowers in a meadow, each tended by forces we do not yet understand. When we look into the night sky, we see stars as points of light, but each one may be a sun, warming its own soils, its own oceans, its own chances at life. If civilizations are the fruit of planets, then the universe itself may be an orchard, vast and patient, where countless blooms rise and fall unseen. The question is not whether Earth grows civilizations, but whether it is part of a cosmic garden where many such experiments are unfolding at once. The idea is both comforting and mysterious. On Earth, gardens flourish through diversity. Some plants grow tall, others low, some bloom quickly, others take centuries. The strength of a garden lies not in uniformity but in variety. If the universe is a garden of civilizations, then it may be filled with diversity beyond our imagining. Some civilizations may last only briefly, flickering out like spring flowers. Others may endure for millions of years, spreading across stars. Some may look like us, built of flesh and bone. Others may be entirely different silicon mines, plasma beings, or forms we cannot describe. Together, they would form a cosmic ecosystem of intelligence, each adapted to its own world, each part of the same vast field. And yet, when we listen, we hear only silence. If the galaxy is a garden, why do we not hear the songs of its blooms? Perhaps the garden is still young, and most civilizations are seedlings, not yet flowering. Perhaps they grow in seasons far longer than ours, measured in millennia instead of centuries. Or perhaps the gardener, the laws of the cosmos, keeps them apart, letting each grow in solitude until the time is right. A garden does not bloom all at once. Flowers take turns, some opening early, some late. The silence of the stars may be nothing more than the quiet before the meadow comes fully into bloom. Earth's role in this garden may be unique, or it may be ordinary. Perhaps we are one of the first civilizations to flower, an early experiment, fragile and small but full of promise. Or perhaps we are late bloomers, joining a garden already rich with unseen civilizations, hidden from us by distance, by time, or by choice. Either way, the idea of a cosmic garden reframes our place. We are not isolated, not a lone miracle, but one blossom among many, part of a larger pattern we have only just begun to glimpse. This perspective changes how we see ourselves. Instead of striving to dominate, to outlast, to prove our uniqueness, we might see ourselves as participants in something larger, contributors to the beauty of the whole. A flower does not need to outshine the meadow. Its value lies in blooming fully, in being what it is. Civilizations, too, may be judged not by how far they spread or how long they last, but by how fully they express their potential through art, through knowledge, through care, through connection. If we are a flower in the cosmic garden, our task is simply to bloom, to scatter our seeds, to add our colours to the vast field of time. The metaphor also softens the fear of collapse. In a garden, flowers bloom and fade. Their passing is not failure, but part of the cycle. Their seeds remain, their nutrients return to the soil, and from their absence, new blooms appear. Civilizations, too, may fade without being lost. Their stories, their inventions, their wisdom become part of the soil of history, nourishing those that come after. If the universe is a garden, then no civilization is wasted. Every rise, every fall, every trace contributes to the whole. Perhaps there is even a gardener, though not a person as we would imagine, but the quiet hand of the universe itself, shaping conditions, balancing forces, pruning what grows too fast, nurturing what grows too slow. Stars give light, planets offer soil, time provides patience. The gardener may not be intentional, but its presence is felt in the laws of physics, the balance of chemistry, the flow of energy. Life flourishes where it can. Intelligence blooms when the conditions are right. Civilizations rise when the soil is ready. The gardener does not speak, but its design is everywhere. For us, the cosmic garden remains invisible, hidden by distance and silence, yet even imagining it changes how we feel. The night sky becomes not emptiness but fullness, not loneliness but companionship. Each star may hold its own stories, its own civilizations blooming in ways we cannot yet see. To look at the stars, then, is to look at the garden itself, to gaze across a meadow so vast that it stretches beyond our comprehension. Our bloom may be small, but it is not alone, and one day, perhaps, the flowers of the garden will meet. Seeds scattered by civilizations may drift across space, carried by probes, by signals, by chance. A message left by one bloom may be found by another, like pollen carried by the wind. Slowly, connections may form, and the garden may begin to sing with voices shared across stars. It may take millions of years, but in the scale of the cosmos, that is only a season. The garden is patient. It waits for every flower to bloom in its own time. So tonight, imagine Earth not as an isolated world, but as one blossom in a vast field. Imagine civilizations as flowers of every shape and colour, each blooming in its own season, each adding to the beauty of the whole. Imagine the silence of the stars not as emptiness, but as potential. The hush before the garden is fully in bloom, and imagine yourself as part of this bloom, one petal on one flower, connected to the meadow of civilizations that may one day stretch across the universe. If Earth was made to grow civilizations, then perhaps the universe was made to be a garden, and we are only now beginning to see the first blossoms unfold. 20. Closing reflection. As we come to the end of this long wandering journey, the thought lingers like a soft echo. What if Earth was made to grow civilizations? We have walked through its oceans and its mountains, through the hidden chambers underground and the wide horizons of the sky. We have considered the rise and fall of empires, the cycles of collapse and renewal, the fruit of technology, and the lessons of catastrophe. We have imagined civilizations as seasons, as seeds, as patterns, as blossoms in a cosmic garden. And now, as we gather these thoughts together, the picture that emerges is not one of certainty, but of wonder. A quiet recognition that civilization may not be an accident but part of Earth's design, woven into its fabric as surely as rivers and forests. Earth has always been generous. It gives water to drink, soil to till, air to breathe. But it also gives something less visible, the conditions for complexity, for intelligence, for society. Again and again, it has cradled civilizations, nurtured them through their spring, watched them bloom in summer, and accepted their decline in autumn and winter. Each cycle leaves traces, ruins, stories, inventions that feed into the next. Nothing is wasted. The soil of history is rich because it is full of civilizations that came before. And so, even when we feel alone in our time, we are not. We walk on ground layered with memory, with lessons, with the seeds of those who lived before us. This thought softens the weight of impermanence. Civilizations, like all living things, cannot last forever. They grow, they strain, they fade, but in fading, they do not vanish. They give to the earth, to the future, to the unseen. They are remembered in stone, in air, in story, in soil. They are remembered by earth itself. And if civilizations are not ends but seeds, then even our own, fragile as it is, may one day scatter into something greater than we can imagine. The seeds may drift into new societies, new worlds, new forms of life, carrying forward pieces of who we were. And perhaps Earth is not alone in this role. Perhaps the universe itself is a gardener, scattering seeds of civilization across countless planets, waiting patiently for them to bloom. We may be only one blossom among many, one petal in a field that stretches farther than sight. The silence of the stars may not mean emptiness. It may mean growth still hidden, blooms yet to open. We may be early, we may be late, but we are not outside the pattern. We are part of it, as natural as waves and wind, as ancient as time. For us, in this moment, the task is not to know the full design, but simply to live within it, to bloom as fully as we can, to scatter seeds of wisdom, of kindness, of curiosity, for those who will come after. To see collapse not as failure, but as transformation. To see catastrophe not only as destruction, but as teaching. To see technology not only as power, but as fruit ripe with potential. And to see ourselves not as separate from Earth, but as part of its long experiment, a part of its patient tending of civilizations. This way of seeing may bring comfort. It tells us that even if we falter, even if our cities fall, even if our voices fade, Earth will continue. Civilizations will rise again. The story will go on. We are not the whole book, but one chapter, one bloom, one seed in the garden of time. That does not diminish us. It deepens us, placing us within a story far larger than our own lives, a story that stretches back into forgotten ages and forward into futures we cannot yet dream. So tonight, as you let your thoughts drift, imagine Earth as a patient gardener, watching over civilizations as they bloom and fade. Imagine our own world as one blossom among many, part of a meadow that spans the stars. Imagine yourself as part of this bloom, carrying within you a seed of the story that will continue no matter what. The question of whether Earth was made to grow civilizations may never have a single answer. But the wonder lies not in the answer, but in the asking, in the act of seeing ourselves not as accidents, but as participants in something vast, something purposeful, something endlessly unfolding. And as you rest now, let that thought settle like a seed in your own mind. You are part of a civilization, and that civilization is part of Earth, and Earth is part of the cosmos. Each is a layer of the same story, each woven into the same garden. The bloom we live in now will fade, as all blooms do, but from it, seeds will scatter, and from those seeds, something new will grow. Always, something new will grow.